All right, so let's get right to it. How to dominate freelancing on Upwork. And the first thing I want to say is on this particular video, we are going to go through all the various components of this course. So consider this video, although it might be a little dry, consider it us laying the foundation and laying the groundwork for everything that we're going to be covering. So I do think it's important that you get the big picture of what we're going to be going through. So as we're going through one video, you might be thinking about, okay, well, when are we ever going to talk about, picking the right jobs, or when are we going to be talking about proposals? So this is the reason I want to lay it all out as far as how we're going to be covering it. And so let me just go right through it. The first thing that we're going to be talking about as we go through this is the purpose of this course. So when we're talking about freelancing, there's a number of different things and aspects that we could talk about, but we are going to talk about the specific purposes and purpose of this course, what it is and what it isn't. So we're going to be getting to that very soon. The next thing, we will spend a little bit of time on account setup. Although I do want to stress that this course really isn't designed to take you through an exhaustive approach of how to sign up for Upwork, Freelancer, or any other of the many freelance websites that are out there. And I do think at this point I should just point out, while the title of this course is How to Dominate Freelancing on Upwork, it really could just be How to Dominate Freelancing. But I chose to put Upwork in there because it's where I'm going to be giving some very specific examples as we go through this course. But the principles of this course are, I believe, very relevant for any sort of freelancing type of community and where clients are existing. And so I think you'll find that as we go through. But we will spend a little bit of time on account setup because it is important to a certain degree. And part of that will be your profile. So again, other freelance sites might call it something different, but it's basically how you can display your resume and your past experiences. And we will talk about that and go through some of that in one of the aspects of this course. We're going to talk about key success factors. So we're going to talk about it in the big picture in theoretical terms first, and really get down to why things work, why things are important. And in that conversation, we'll also talk about some of the things that probably aren't that important that people can lose a lot of time on. So we are going to take some specific time to say, hey, there's about 100 different things you could be thinking about and focusing on when it comes to your freelancing business and having success in freelancing. Here's the 5 or 10 that you really need to focus your time and energy on. And I really do believe that focusing in on what matters is so important when it comes to having success in freelancing because, anyway, I'm not going to dwell too much on it now, but needless to say, we're going to be talking about that as we go through the course. Your first job. So some of you are watching this and going through this course never having actually done any freelance work, or you've done some freelance work, but you never really thought of it in those terms. You did it for a company that you know, or for someone individually that you know, and you did some work for them. Well, that's actually freelance. But when it comes to freelance communities online and freelance websites, maybe you've never done any work that way. And I will tell you that getting those first jobs, executing those first jobs is absolutely critical. And it can seem like an impossible hurdle to get over. And some of you perhaps watching this course have tried. You're like, well, I just couldn't get a job. It seemed like everything was stacked against me. So we're going to talk about that because it's really important. For some of you, you've already done plenty of jobs and you may not need to spend too much time on this particular aspect of the course. But you may find it interesting and be able to relate to it. Now, the next thing we're going to be talking about is the money. So very important when it comes to freelancing. How much are you earning? And how much is Upwork, for example, or are other freelancing websites, what kind of a cut are they taking? What percentage of your earnings are they taking away because of the services they provide? So we'll talk a little bit about that. Then we're gonna start really honing in on how do you pick the right jobs? How do you pick the right people that you want to do work for? And there really are a number of things that you need to focus in on. And it can be different depending on how much you're just getting started versus your strategy of if you want to work for just a couple of clients and have really long-term relationships versus transactional business where you want to do X number of jobs per week. All things to be thinking about when it comes to picking the right job. So we're really going to dive into that and spend some time on that. Very important part of this. Now, just as important are jobs to avoid, clients to avoid, and red flags to look for. So we will be spending time on that through the course as well. All right. Next, and if the next thing we're going to be spending time on is proposals. And other freelance, I believe Upwork calls them proposals. Other freelance websites might call them job bids. Whatever you call it, it's basically the point where you've decided that you want that job, and now you need to pitch yourself and pitch what you can do. And so we're going to be spending a lot of time on that particular section because it's so critical. And you can really shine in this area, or you can be like most people and either be mediocre or weak. So we're going to be spending a lot of time on that. Okay. And then the first meeting. So I think some people that go into freelancing don't even really think of this part. But when it comes to doing up a proposal, and the proposal is really just to start the relationship, and you really want to have a meeting, whether it be over Skype or phone, or sometimes even a live chat back and forth, or a webcam meeting, whatever it is, you want to have a strategy around that first meeting and conversation that you have with the client, the person that's hiring you or considering you for a particular job. And then I have another section, and we're going to spend some time on it, called presentation. And this is all part of the getting the job stage. So proposals, the first meeting, the presentation, and how you really can present yourself and your recommendations and the service that you offer, and even just yourself, and how important that is. And so we're going to spend time on that. And then it's actually about winning the job and locking the job down. Okay. So all of these sections, these items, I'll just point my cursor here, from proposal to winning the job. Obviously, this is very much the meat of getting the work. Okay. And this is just so important. But we don't stop there, because then it comes to actually starting the work. And there's some I believe there's a good gem or two in here of when you start working with somebody, how you can really explode the opportunity from what might be a seemingly small opportunity to something that's really big. And so we'll talk about that. And then we're going to take sort of a step, I don't want to say a step back, but we're going to take just a little step off to the side and review things and look at success rates. Consider, okay, how many proposals, how many jobs do I have to look at? How many proposals do I have to send in? How many conversations do I need to have? What can I expect from all of this? If I do 100 job proposals, how many jobs should I expect to ultimately land? How much time is this all going to take me? So what does that mean for my success or my failure? So we're going to have a look at that and actually look at some hard numbers of what you can expect based on your activity of trying to get work and where that should all be taking you. So we want to look at it before you even really get into it. We want to consider, what does success look like? And then we're going to go from that, and we're going to look at the next level success. So after you've been working with people, after you've been working with clients, what should you be trying to do? What should you be trying to achieve? So some really important things there that if you're just sort of getting into freelancing, and frankly, even if you've been in it a while, there's some items here that you may not have considered that could really improve what you do and improve your freelancing business. Okay. And so then at the very end, we're going to review the whole thing again. So we're kind of looking at everything we're going to cover. We're looking at it right now. Well, at the end of it, we're going to say, okay, here's what we looked at. What does it all mean? And where do we go from here? So, so I hope this makes sense. I wanted to introduce you to what the entire course is going to look like. And we're going to bite these off one at a time. And we're going to be referring back to items and pieces of the course that we've done. And I may even refer to other upcoming pieces of the course as we go through it and say we're going to be covering it in detail later on. but I wanted you to get the full big picture before we dive in. All right, so let's get going. Let's discuss the purpose of this course. So the way I want to do that is to first discuss what it isn't about. What this course is not designed to really focus on and to really cover in any great detail. And then we'll talk about what it is. So the purpose of this course is not to go into great depth about all the opportunities and ways to sign up for freelance websites. So there are a number of freelance websites out there on the internet. They come and they go sometimes. And, signing up and registering for one and putting in your information and registering, to me, is not a good use of your time. If you're interested in being successful at freelancing online, I'm going to assume that you have a pretty good aptitude for registrations and signing up and getting yourself registered into a freelancing community. All right, so that's not what this course is going to spend very much time on at all. It's also not about an automated proposal submission system. All right, so this is not strictly about a numbers game. We can all imagine that the more proposals you submit, the better return and the more jobs you'll win, and how you could do it, submit proposals the fastest and all of that's really not what we're focusing in on here. This really is about high quality and targeted freelance searching and winning jobs. And so this isn't like any kind of tool or process where you can get thousands of job submissions or proposals in. That's not what we're doing here. Okay. Another thing is we're not going to spend tons and tons of time in designing a perfect resume or profile. Now, let me just pause. We are going to spend some time setting up your profile, which effectively is the word that Upwork uses for your resume, if you will. And it does matter. So I don't want to discount it, but we're not going to spend half the course on it because there's more important things for us to focus on. Okay, so what you're seeing here, this course is not focusing in on any of these particular areas that you're looking at. So you're like, okay, well, what is it about? The course and what we're going to be spending our time and energy focused on is the following. It's about getting a huge advantage on freelance sites over your competitors, defeating your competition, and actually winning jobs. Okay? So I believe where the biggest need is for anyone that's going into freelancing and really wanting to excel in freelance work is how do you get jobs? How do you get conversations with people that are hiring people? And how do you win those jobs? And as well, how do you maximize your earnings? Because I doubt too many of us going through this course are that interested in working for a few dollars an hour. You want to make a good living doing freelance work. Or maybe you're just looking to do it part-time, but you don't want to work for pennies, nor should you, by the way. You do no one any good by going and being willing to work for next to nothing. So, and that'll be a recurring theme as we go through this course. So I know I'm spending a little bit of time setting things up and setting up your expectations about what we're going to cover, but I'm doing it because I think it's important for us to have the big picture as we dive in to the course. And I want to get your mind set properly on what it is we're going to be spending our time and our energy on. Okay, so hope you found this helpful, and we'll press on to the next section of the course. All right, it's time to discuss the account setup. Now, before I go into this, I want to point out that this course is talking about how to dominate freelancing. And as we go through it, we're very much using examples within the Upwork platform. However, freelance sites come and go, as we've seen if you've been in this community for a while. There are plenty of other freelance websites besides Upwork. So I do want to point out that you can still greatly benefit from this course, regardless of which freelancing community and website that you're using. But I am going to be using Upwork as some examples and some specifics, because I want to be specific as I can in this course and not just be talking theoretical, which is sort of what we've done in the first few lessons. So I want to start getting really specific. But I do just need to point that out again. Just because you may not be using Upwork or you're thinking of using different freelancing communities, sites, that's fine. The principles of this course, I believe, are very sound, regardless of which community you're a part of. Okay, so that's sort of a disclaimer, but let's get going. And when it comes to setting up a freelance account, if you haven't already done so, or even if you have, the big question will come up: should I get a free account or should I pay for their premium service? I used to do a fair bit of work on Elance, which some of you are probably definitely familiar with, and I paid for their premium service there. And I also think I used it for a while as a free member. And now Upwork, I'm using their paid service as well. And the ranges, I think, of prices I've paid might be between 10, 20, $30 a month, something along those lines. As I record this, I believe the Upwork service fee is a $10 per month. That could change. They could drop it. They could increase it, maybe even significantly. I've got to tell you, from my experience, if you're going to be serious about freelancing business, get the paid version. I'm going to go through why, and I think it's well worth it, especially where at this stage it's only about $10. But even if it's 20 or 30 or 40, I wouldn't hesitate. I would do it. Now, if you start getting so much work that you're not really using their service to find new clients, and you just have continuous clients that you've already gotten, then you might be able to turn it off for a while. But if you're actively looking for work, I absolutely believe in the paid service. Okay, so there you go. So let me share with you a couple of things. Actually, I'm going to bring up on the screen the Upwork membership summary. So you should be seeing here on the video the Freelancer Basic for Upwork, which is $0 per month, and it explains what you get for that. And then Freelancer Plus, which as I record this is basically their only premium membership. Another site I used, Elance, as I mentioned, they had a few different levels, I believe. But what you get is a number of different items here. And they're trying to sell this thing, so they're trying to make it look a whole lot better than the free. Let me just pop this screen down again, and I want to point out to you what I sort of gleaned from the paid and what matters. So paid benefits being a premium member on Upwork. You get 70 connects per month. So what is that over the free plan? 60 connects per month. Actually, that's not much of a difference, frankly. I'm not sure how much that really matters. The ability to buy additional connects as needed for $1 each. Most of you probably know, but a connect basically is the currency on Upwork that allows you to bid for jobs that are posted. So a client comes on, they post a project or a job, you want to submit a proposal, it's going to cost you a couple of connects. It depends. It can cost you even a little bit more than that, I think, if it's a higher paying job. The reason I'm kind of sounding a little dismissive on that is I believe if you follow my processes, you're really not going to run into too many issues around how many connects you have left. But anyway, still, you get a bit more on the connect side. Now, this is fairly significant, especially if you're going to be bidding and doing a lot of proposals, is that your connects from the previous month can roll over to the following billing cycle. So you actually can start to accumulate up to 140 unused connects. So I actually consider that a legitimate benefit, where the other two I'm really not seeing a huge amount of value in my experience. Okay, here it is though. This is the reason you want the paid account, is it allows you to see your competitors' high, low, and average bids on the job. You want to know that, so that if you're bidding for an hourly rate job, if you see that there's 10 proposals in, and the lowest amount is $3 an hour and the highest amount is $5 an hour, if I'm looking at that and saying 10 people already bid and no one's bidding higher than $5 an hour, I'm going to think about if I want to compete with that. More realistically, what I see is someone's bidding at $8 an hour and someone's bidding at $60 an hour or $45 an hour. And I'm like, you know what? I can fit in there. I always think of it, don't be the lowest and try not to be the highest. In some cases you might be, and I actually don't see that as a huge negative, but I would rather come in a little bit below the highest. Okay, so we're going to get into some of that strategy later on, but I want to drive home the point that this right here, this is the reason you want the paid account. because otherwise you're completely going blind. Oh, another reason is if I see someone that posted a job and it's got 40 proposals, I'm not sure I want to bid. I'm not sure I want to put a proposal in on that unless I'm really confident or know I can get their attention. Now, in some markets, you might have to bid against 40 other proposals. I tend to like to get in when there's only 5 to 10. But again, that can change depending on your market. So that one's all relative. But still, the point is you want to see how much activity is going on that particular job posting or that particular bid. Okay, there we go. And the ability to create a customized URL to your freelancer profile. I look at that and say, whatever. I don't really care. The ability to hide your earnings on your freelancer profile. Maybe that's good if you have low earnings. Maybe. I've never used that, and my gut tells me I don't think I should hide that. And maybe if it's really low, I should hide it, but I'm still not even sure about that. So I don't see that as a big benefit. Okay, so I'm basically telling you, when you're looking for work and looking to bring on new clients, pay the small fee. And again, as of the recording of this, all I've ever really seen are relatively small fees of $10, $20, $30 per month. I understand you may not want to pay that forever, but from what I've also seen, it's a 1 month commitment and not a big deal. Okay, one other thing I want to do as far as in the discussion here of your account setup is I want to show you just the beginning part of the Upwork sign-up process as a freelancer. Now, why would I say as a freelancer? Of course, as a freelancer, that's what this course is about. But believe it or not, it can actually be a little bit confusing when you get started. Maybe it was just me having a little bit of trouble, but it really should be very straightforward. So let's go to the home page, and you should see that now up on your screen. And this is what you come to. Again, as of the recording of this video, it could change. Home pages often do. But I still want to give you the idea of what I'm talking about. So get more done with freelancers. 1+ million businesses are use Upwork for top quality talent. So go ahead and get started. And what they present you with here is, what do you want to do? Hire for a project, or do you want to find work as a freelancer? So obviously, this is a very critical choice. Am I looking to hire somebody, or am I looking to work as a freelancer? So the answer clearly is find work as a freelancer. And I wanted to show you this because if you're just kind of quickly clicking through, you might just click on the first thing you see. The other thing is, and I've done this, I've created both sides of the account. Because occasionally I want to look for someone to hire, and I also want to do freelance work. So you can have both. Just and you can really, once you sign in, you can kind of just toggle or switch between them. Just make sure you know which one is which when you sign up. But for those of you just getting started, just go ahead and click on Find Work as a Freelancer. It's going to bring you to a standard form that we've seen a million times on the internet. Just go through that process. And I'm going to be discussing in an upcoming lesson here how to set up your profile, how to set up your pages. Upwork basically allows you to create a page to sell yourself to people. It'll be basically your resume on Upwork, types of work that you've done, examples of work you've done, those sort of things. We're going to get into that. Now, again, these sign-up processes can or may not change. So I would, watch this course before you go and sign up, because I think you're going to get some benefit, at least from the next video or two. So don't just jump in and sign up yet. Okay. If you're new and you're thinking of signing up, just go through the next couple of videos at least before you do that. I'd really recommend going through the whole course before you start signing up. Okay. So that's really all I wanted to talk about in this particular account setup section of the course. Not real exciting, but important. And we're going to continue to get into more meat here as we go along. All right, time to look at your profile. And, we're about to dive into a whole bunch of details here. I can almost hear some of you saying, though, okay, we've been doing some lessons here. Let's get to it. What is actually going to make the difference? How am I going to win freelance jobs? How am I going to make money? How am I going to make a living from this? This is really the point where we stop from laying the foundation and the theoretical and really move into the practical and what is going to separate you from your competition, what's going to help clients and those that are posting jobs evaluate you and decide to choose you as someone they want to hire as a freelancer. So here we go. Get ready for it. And it's called your profile, and profile is the word that Upwork uses to describe the area or a page or pages that they've dedicated to your Upwork account, where people can come in and look at effectively your resume, your work history, samples of your success, your picture. Anyway, we'll see. We're going to go through it right now. I don't know why I'm just listing it out randomly. Let's have a look. And as we do it, we're going to be looking at my profile right here. And we're going to be looking at it. And I'm not going to pretend that I have a perfect profile, but I will tell you that I believe it's pretty solid, and I have focused on the things that matter, and it has served me well. So that's what I want to tell you on that. And what I want to do is just throw up on the screen here the items that matter. And then what we're going to do is we're going to flip back over to my profile screen on Upwork, and we're going to go through them one by one. And I'll sort of make some comments, additional commentary as we go through it. Again, if you're on a different freelancing site or you're using multiple freelance sites, I believe the principles here are the same, and you're going to have pretty much one-for-one comparisons compared to this Upwork profile. So let's go ahead and begin. First thing is a photo of yourself. That's pretty straightforward. Your name and job title being the most important thing here so far. The amount of dollars you charge per hour. Not positive Upwork requires that, but I've got it in mind. I think it's wise to put that in there. It kind of helps to establish yourself. Listing of your skills. So you need to list skills that you consider yourself very well equipped to deliver. Don't stretch to the truth. If you put you have a skill that you're still working on, just keep in mind you need to become an expert or at least very good at that skill before you begin a job. There's an opportunity for you to have a video, basically a video overview of what you do and your approach to business or whatever niche that you're in. If your main focus is web development, then that's what the video should be about. There's an overview section. There's a work history and feedback session. Absolutely crucial. There's a portfolio, work samples, essentially. There's certifications and tests that Upwork allows you to take. Your employment history, similar in education, very similar to what you would see on a resume. Your work history, I guess I've listed this twice for some reason. Your work history. And your availability, basically, are you looking for new work right now? Because while we've been talking very much about going out and finding jobs to bid on, sometimes you'll get invitations to bid on people's jobs because they've looked at you before or Upwork has recommended you to them through their algorithm. Your response time, basically your responsiveness, your profile link, a link to the profile itself, languages that you're able to provide work in, and there you go. And then from there we're going to look at some profile settings. But let's go over to my profile page, so we're not just talking abstract here, and let's go through them. So here's a photo. I believe, I'm not going to harp on this too much. Make it a professional photo. It doesn't have to be you in a suit and a tie or in a gown or anything too formal, but I would say a business casual, I think is the term. Just professional, okay? You don't have to look like a model or anything. I mean, you don't have to be as drop dead gorgeous as me here. That's a little Upwork humor there. This is also me about 15 or 10 years ago. That's an old photo. Picture me with less hair and an additional 30 or 40 pounds. Okay, let's move on. I'm getting lost in my own bad jokes. Your dollars per hour. So on this one, I've put it in here, and I believe in making this as high as is marketable. So I believe Upwork will allow you to leave it out. Let me just click on the edit here. I think you can just leave it out if you don't want to put it in. But I actually think put in about the highest amount that you believe will be marketable, because it's not that critical, because ultimately you're going to be bidding on jobs and putting in specific price ranges for the jobs that you're bidding on. So I actually think it's good to have a fairly high amount here so that you look confident and competent instead of just looking like someone that'll work for nothing. All right, some of these things are very much, what's the word? They're not as they seem. They're counterintuitive, I guess. I could say, well, I'll just put a really low number here and people will really want to hire me. Well, more than likely, they'll think I don't know what I'm doing if I'm willing to work for $3 an hour. Okay. All right. And some of that can be geographic and what area of the world you're in. So that can matter as well. So anyway, then we have skills, and that's what this is. So when I go into skills, by the way, we're talking about this now looking at a completed profile, but it's very possible that when you register for Upwork or other freelance sites, they're going to push you to do this along the way as you register and initially set up. Or right after you register, they're going to suggest that you set all of this up, and I agree. So enter your skills in. Normally you're going to be directed to keep your skills sort of under one major category. If you look at mine, you can see it's under sales and marketing. And that's exactly what I want. Okay. All right, so let me cancel out of that. So that's where you can do. That's what you can do there. This is, I don't know how long they've had this, but you can actually click on and add a video into your profile, which I think is awesome. Now, it may take you a little while to create. I really recommend only a couple minutes. And I may even go back and work on mine, because what I have in here right now is I simply have a video that talks about my approach to sales and marketing. Looks like I have a bad internet connection right now as well, because this isn't playing yet. Oh, there we go. So it's starting to play. And what I've got here is I have a diagram of my approach to sales and marketing. I'm pretty confident, although this isn't beautiful. Let me just maximize this so you can see it. Yeah, it's definitely not beautiful, but what it's, I know for a fact it's landed me work. Having this video and discussing it with a client of mine, he very much told me that that's why he ended up going with me. So having a video in there, I believe, is a really good move and could differentiate you from someone. So I didn't want to have like a live video where I'm talking on the screen, but you could do that. You could have like a webcam video. It doesn't have to look like super professional. It just needs to look good. And it could be just you talking into your webcam. And once people remember, when people are hiring you, they want to trust you. And by adding a video, that can very much help that. Okay, spend a little bit of time in this. Overview. So an overview here is very much, you can almost think of it as a cover letter to a resume. So I would recommend writing out who you are. And for me, I said, I'm a successful manager of marketing and sales, projects and teams. So you want to keep it broad enough that you're not losing opportunities because you're being too specific, but you also want to have some very specific examples of what it is that you do. And so I generally explained my background and the types of work that I do. And then I immediately went into, here's an achievement that I've recently done. I only listed one here when it came to online marketing, some success that I've had. And then I listed out the type examples of work that I've done at other organizations, and then more accomplishments. Because what you want when someone is reading your overview, you want them to think about, is this guy going to work for me? So the more examples you can put in of what you've accomplished, the more specific you can present, the better. Okay, so that's the overview. By the way, I don't think there's that many people reading my full overview. It's a little long. I mean, it's good that I have this in here, but I don't believe that many people are reading my full overview. It's kind of wordy. Okay, the next thing is work history and feedback. Okay, super, super, super important. So just like eBay, just like, what is it, Yelp, people that interact with you, people that hire you and that you deliver work for, get an opportunity to rate you. And you need them to give you perfect ratings. You need 5 out of 5. You can say, well, what if they're not honest? What if they're a jerk? What if? This, you need to consider this your holy grail. Like, the most important thing to manage publicly is the type of feedback and ratings that your clients are giving you. I would, if I thought someone was going to give me a 3 out of 5 rating, I would offer to do work for free to get that up for 5 for 5. I'd be calling him or her, and I would be doing everything I can to make sure that I'm going to get a perfect rating. So, and I'll talk to them. I'll even talk to them about it before before they give me a rating. So I've had, yeah, as we go through here, you can see I've got 5 out of 5 ratings. This was one here that didn't give me a rating. And this was a campaign. This was sort of a project that didn't go spectacularly well. So I didn't insist on him giving me a rating, and he never did give me a rating. So that's not so bad if it's just the bad ratings that you really don't want. And, you know, sometimes you can't help it. The project isn't going to go perfectly. So do whatever you can. It's amazing how reasonable these clients are. If you be forthright and say, look, I need a perfect rating. What can I do to make that happen so that you're satisfied? People are very reasonable. So here was one where I didn't get a perfect rating and I was frustrated. It was 4.9. So that's fun. He even gave me a nice write-up. And here's another one, 4.1. What's funny about this is, I don't know if we can see it here. What's funny about this is it's the person giving this rating didn't even think they were doing. Look, I mean, Pat was great to work with. Would happily work with him again. Well, why'd you give me a 4.1? Because he didn't really think it was a big deal. He gave me like a perfect score on almost everything, but that brought the score down. So it took me a while to get my score back up from this one. Okay. Anyway, just what I'm saying is work with your clients. Talk to them about the rating. If you get any kind of sense that they're not going to give you a perfect rating or feedback, then work with them and aggressively say, what do I need to do to get that before they leave that rating? Okay. I can't stress enough how important that is, because when you post your bids and your proposals, it's exactly what people are looking at is what's the success rate? What's the feedback that other people have hired? And what have they gotten? And you might be asking the question, well, what if I don't have any work history? We're gonna deal very directly with that item because that's critical. Okay, kind of went off the rails there a little bit, but I feel very passionately about that, and that is so important. Your portfolio, what I did for my portfolio was put a number of screenshots, Facebook growth, video sales letter, managing Google AdWords campaigns, SEO rankings, and I put some screenshots in there because I think a screenshot can speak 1,000 words. It also shows you're very confident. So this does not have to be work that you did on Upwork or even any other freelance work. It could be other projects or other accomplishments that you have had yourself or on any kind of project. Could even be volunteer work. Okay, certifications. Look at this. I have no certifications listed. So you can go ahead and add them in here and add a certification. I can see my internet's really slow, which is too bad considering we're recording this. So you can select your certifications from here, and you can see them listed here. And these are like officially recognized certifications. For me in my industry, not particularly important. I've had no trouble getting work without these. But if you've got them, and in some industries, very important, probably, go ahead and add them in there. These are one of those things that I'm saying not that critical for me. And I'm not sure how important it would be, period, to getting work. Tests. I see people doing these. And so you can do tests around just a number of different topics. And these are tests that Upwork has come up with. People are basically trying to prove how good they are at English or at programming and all of that. I don't play that game. I don't want to. So, and I don't believe it's necessary in my experience. You can do it if you want, but I think it can take a lot of time, a lot more stress for you, and I wouldn't worry about it. And then you have your employment history. Certainly smart to list at least some of your recent employment history. I didn't go overboard on it, just the last couple of things I've done. And then education. If you have formal education, good idea to put it in here. But again, I don't think it's a huge factor. And then other experiences. I actually didn't spend any time on that. That wouldn't hurt, but I didn't find it that critical. So just because Upwork's got it listed here doesn't mean it's really that important necessarily. Okay, so then we have work history. So work history, I think, matters, but you don't have it until you have it. And we're going to deal with that, and we're going to handle this issue. So if you're just new starting out, don't worry, we know how to handle this. If you're 0 hours worked and 0 jobs, we're going to fix that. We're going to show you how to handle that, okay? Availability. So availability, you want to have yourself as available, unless, of course, you're not available. And how much you're available. And then you can have your response time. So if people are contacting you, good idea to contact them back as quickly as possible. I will tell you, I've gotten invitations to work and I haven't responded, so I don't think it's that big a deal. But particularly when you're starting out, you may want to get back to people on proposal invitations and just turn them down just so that you have a quick response time. I'm going to say it's not a huge deal though. Profile link, it just provides it here for you. I think this is one where you can actually put in that customized URL if you have a paid account. I just used my name. And then languages that are native for you. So important. One thing they have here is that I'm fluent in a language versus native or bilingual. Very important to make sure you put native if you are native to that language. Fluent sounds good, but apparently it's not as good as native. All right. So there you go. That's the basics of your profile. Now, I hope that makes sense, and you got for me there what really the most important things are. So again, let me just quickly boil it down for you. Let me just switch back. What do I think the most important things are when it comes to your profile? I believe your job title is very important, and your skills. This is going to help people find you. Your work history and feedback, I would say, is number one most important thing. And yeah, if I had to boil it down, I would say your skills, your job title, your overview, and your work history and feedback. Okay? A lot of things here, but those are the 4 that you want to spend your time on. All right, let's go. There's a little bit more when it comes to your profile. I mean, this is basically your web page within the Upwork community, and other freelance communities are going to have something similar. So there's something called profile settings. So that actually goes just a little bit deeper. You'll see up here, profile settings. Actually, before I go into that, let me just point out that you can click on this link that says view my profiles as others see it. It's very similar to this, but you might notice that there's a tiny bit of a difference, like there's no edit options right here. And it's just having a little trouble flipping screens. Probably because I'm recording or I have a Wi-Fi issue right now. Okay, so now you can see my screen as viewed by a client looking at my screen. Just basically they don't have those edit options. But it's nice to be able to see it as someone that's looking would see it. Let's go back. Okay. And now I want to, before I distracted myself, let's look at profile settings. Keep flipping back and forth. Let me just tell you first what we're going to review. We're going to look at profile settings being visibility, earnings visibility, experience level, categories, linked accounts. So these are all what profile settings are, is pretty much what it sounds like. What you want to display to someone that is checking you out. All right, so let's go ahead and click on it, and I'll be able to show you exactly what that looks like. All right, so profile settings. Here I am here in my account. So I've got some of my personal information. I want to talk about visibility. You can't. You could make it so that only certain people could see you. Not sure why you'd want that, but anyway, it's there in case you want it. Maybe you have so much work you just don't want people to see you. You're probably not watching this course though, if that's the case. Responsiveness. This is what we were talking about here. Here's your earnings visibility. If you don't want people to see your earnings, you would check that off. Again, don't think I would check it off, even if I was just starting out. Experience level. I have to tell you that you really need this to be expert or intermediate level. Like, do you really want to list yourself as entry level? Now you can say, well, I'm really not that. I'm really am just entry level and just getting used to certain things. So if that's the case and you're willing to work for very little money, there is a place for that. So I'm not telling you to lie, but go ahead and hit entry level. I would rather you focus on skills that you have an intermediate or expert level in and click on it. And here's what I would want to point out here is don't downsell yourself, if that's a word. Don't underestimate yourself and think that everybody knows so much more than you do. Okay? Good people are hard to find, so don't be afraid to go to that expert level. Categories. So here you have categories and then subcategories. So my main categories were writing and sales and marketing, and then subcategories underneath that. So I can edit that, and here's what it looks like. Okay. And I can choose 10 matching categories. So for me, these were the ones that made sense, writing and then sales and marketing. For you, it could be any of these other ones. But this is a nice, neat place to see exactly what's going on in Upwork, the Upwork community. There are other freelance sites that are dedicated to different or more specific types of industries. Okay, so this is very important what you select here, because people are looking for freelancers, and you're bidding on jobs. People need to be able to see that you're in the right category. And then linked accounts. You can see what you can do here is you can link your Facebook, your Twitter, your LinkedIn accounts. I don't do it. If you want to, and you feel that your Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and any of these other Google Plus, any of these other accounts, if you feel that what you have on those accounts really represents you well professionally, it's going to improve the trust level that people have in you, then go for it. For me, it was my other accounts are more personal. My LinkedIn doesn't sync up perfectly with this, so I just didn't bother. And I don't think you're going to get a huge benefit out of it. But that's what I wanted to point out for profile settings. So this was sort of a long lesson. So thanks for sticking with me on it. I think and hope you can see that this is very important. We're really starting to pitch ourselves and position ourselves so that when people are checking us out and evaluating us, they'll be like, yeah, this person's really got it together. Okay, so there you go. That is the end of the Your Profile lesson. Okay, it's time to look at key success factors. So we've started to do this in looking at the profile section. There's certainly things you need to focus on, spend some time and energy on when it comes to your profile. There's a number of other things that you need to do as well to be successful. So, and we're going to be going through them as we look at how to find jobs, which jobs to avoid, how to write proposals, how to work with clients and have initial discussions with prospects. We're going to be going through all of it. And so I want to set the principles for this work right now and identifying a number of key success factors. So some of those key success factors are all about you. So you'll understand in a couple of moments what I'm saying here and the way I'm sort of dividing this up. So when it comes to you, your success factors include your work history. And again, for some of you that are watching this and say, I've done no freelance jobs, don't panic. We're going to address that. It's coming. The feedback on your work. Again, very important. And here's one that you don't really have any control over, or very little, that's important, and that's your geographic location. So we've all heard comments made about people and employees and workers from various countries. Now, I'm from Canada. I work with Canadians and folks from the United States, worked from people in the Philippines and India, Australia, a number of different countries. And so your geographic location, fair or not fair, is going to have an impact on you. So there are some people that do freelance work and they come looking for people that work in the Philippines or from India, places that would have generally speaking, a lower average wage. And then there's other people that are coming and they're saying, I want someone from Europe, or I want someone just from the United States. And so these are all factors. It's something about you, and you need to be aware of it. And I think in large part, you are going to want to be aware of it as you're looking for jobs to bid on. And if it is something that a potential client sees as a negative, you need to address it head on. Okay. But anyway, those three things are the key success factors that I wanted to point out that are all about you. Now, there's key success factors to being successful in freelancing that are about the clients you're looking to work with. So I call them prospects or prospective clients, people that are posting jobs and projects that are willing to pay for people to work on those jobs and projects. So what is it about them that should impact my success? Well, their ranking. So not only it works both ways. You can freelancers will rank clients that they have worked for. So maybe they didn't pay on time. Maybe they were just extremely picky. Maybe they were amazing to work for. They were supportive. They provided great insight. Their communication was excellent. So their ranking is very important. Here's one that I think some people don't think about is their hire rate. Look at how many jobs a client has posted and what percentage of the time do they ever end up hiring someone. So you maybe, if you haven't done a lot of freelancing work, you may not be aware of that. For some reason, people post jobs and then they get distracted and they never hire anyone for that work, or at least it doesn't show that way in the freelance site. So be careful of people that post for lots of jobs and then don't hire anyone according to their hire rate. There's a little bit more to that than just that, but that's a very important factor. We'll talk probably more about that a little bit later on. Look at their total spend. So I'm going to show you examples of a screen that is about you, which we've already looked at your profile, and then we're going to look at a client's information. So how much money are they spending and have they spent if they're an Upwork member, over their membership of Upwork? How much have they spent? And then what do they end up usually paying per hour? So these are all really important factors. So let me quickly show you, again, on my profile here, my work history. It's found down here. And you see my work history is pretty strong. There's lots of it. There's some pretty good write-ups, like short testimonials which are positive, and then there's good scores. And then my geographic location for positive or for negative is in Canada. Okay? So I always have to take these three things into account when I'm bidding on work. Now, when I go to look for a job, and we're going to show you how to actually be looking and effectively look for jobs. But let's say I've found one here that I thought I might be interested in. Well, I want to check out, before I even really read all of these details about the job, I want to look at, who is this person? I don't even know if this person's name is listed here, but everything I need to know about them, or a lot of what I need to know about them, is here. So if I look at their ranking, a 4.9 average ranking with 9 reviews, that's pretty strong. Their hire rate, so they've posted 19 jobs, and 85% of the jobs they have posted have been hired for. In fact, 2 of them are still open. So these guys, almost every time they post a job, they hire somebody. This is actually an excellent number. Total amount of money they've spent on Upwork, over $4,000. Pretty good. I think that's pretty good. What is the average hourly rate that they have paid out? $7.37. Now, for me, I'm like, that's definitely a negative because I'm not interested in working, anywhere near that low. This one you have to be careful of because sometimes people will hire people very inexpensively, and then they're also willing occasionally to pay people a higher rate. So their average could certainly be lower than what they might be willing to spend for this. However, it's still something important to look at. And given that there's been 541 hours worked, and this is the average, and there's been 19 or what would that be, 17 or 16 jobs that have worked, I'm thinking this person likes to pay pretty low for their work. Okay, so these are all very, very important things. Like for me, I wouldn't probably bother. Even if I thought this was the perfect job for me, I probably wouldn't even bother posting because this guy would have to go so far above his norm to pay me what I think I'm worth or what I'm willing to work for that I'm not going to waste my time on it. Okay, let's go back. There's some other important success factors, and some of these success factors are your effort. So what you're actually doing when it comes to, and I say your effort, I don't just mean the work that you're doing. I mean looking for prospects, looking for clients, looking for jobs that are a good fit for you, choosing the right ones, and all of that. So I believe part of your effort should be cherry picking. I don't think you should be posting a proposal for everything that you think you could possibly work with. I think you should be out there being very selective about the type of work that you want. And then key success factors is how you communicate with prospects. We're going to spend so much time on this, and it's some of the, I believe, the most magical part of this course, if I can say that. And I do believe, actually, that what you're going to learn about how to communicate with prospects is going to set you apart from 99% of the people trying to get work on Upwork and other freelancing sites. So, how you communicate when you reach out. So the actual timing of when you connect with a client that is looking for work. And again, just sort of saying it again, separating yourself from the masses. So what are the things I can do in my effort so that at the very least, they're going to remember me? They're going to remember my proposal. Even if they didn't end up choosing me, they're going to remember it. And so separating yourself from the masses. And then about your effort, key success factors, it's the actual winning of the job. You're going after the win. You're not just throwing stuff to stick against the wall. You are going after to win the job, and you have a very step-by-step specific plan to do it. So these are all key success factors about your effort, what you need to know about the clients, and then how you are positioned in your information and documentation on the freelancing site. What's about you? So I'm excited about these key success factors, and we're going to see these come up over and over again as we continue on with the lessons. It is now time to talk about your first jobs. So your first freelancing job. So this could come in a couple different forms. Maybe you've been doing freelance work on your own, locally, and you want to start doing it online. So you need to get a work history. You need to get your first jobs in whatever freelance communities that you join, such as Upwork, which is the example I've been using in this course, or it could be Freelancer, it could be any number of different freelance sites. Or maybe you're leaving one freelance site and going to another freelance site. And you need to build some job history there. Or maybe freelancing is completely brand new to you and you have no work history at all. And you know that really to get attention, to land some good business, you need to have getting the first couple jobs is going to be critical. So that's the point I want to make. I've been saying it all along. Having a 2 to 3 job history is critical. You need a perfect 5 out of 5 score from those jobs. So no point in doing them. No point in getting these jobs if you don't nail them. And ideally, you also want to get a testimonial and a nice write up from them, and everything goes really well. So that's very, very important. So here's what I consider a little bit of magic, a real gem in this course is how do you get these first 2 to 3 jobs so that your profile is really complete, so that when other project managers and other clients that are looking for work come to you, they know that you're reputable. You ethically rig it. Okay, so I don't know if you're expecting that or not, but let me explain what I mean by this. The first important thing I want to point out is this must be ethical. So we're not looking to rip anyone off. We're not looking to rip off the freelance site. We're not looking to rip off any clients. We're not looking to rip off anybody. This all has to be done above board. That said, you don't necessarily have to follow the layout of what you think automatically you're supposed to do. I'm not when you get going to get your first couple jobs, I don't want you to go bid on 50 proposals for job bids that are being posted by clients on Upwork or whatever freelance site you're going for. It's too hard because those people are going to look at your profile and they're going to say, well, this person doesn't have any job history. So you can see the dilemma, right, in getting started. So here's what you do. You do the same thing that you would do if you were starting an offline business. You go and you reach out to the people that you know very well. It could be your brother. It could be your mother-in-law. It could be someone, an internet friend that you feel like you have a good relationship with. And we're looking for people that have a business, that have something you could help them with. So let me show you with an example of what I did. Here's my profile. When I first started out, I said, I kind of figured, you know what? I know I need to get some job history, some results, because I know that's what people are going to be looking for. Because that's exactly when you make a post and you have zero job history, it's just sort of like glaring. It's this ugly thing. So I had a sports radio website that I was associated with. I knew a guy that was writing a book, and I reached out to them and said, look, I'm doing some freelance work and I am willing to do this work, for a little job for you, not a whole lot of money, and I'll do it for you. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a perfect ranking and a great testimonial. And here's the thing, and you have to do this properly and carefully. I'm not going to charge you for it, but we do need to run it through the freelance website. So you make offline arrangements financially so that then they're going to register for the freelance site. They're actually going to post the job. They're going to award you the job, and you're going to do the work. And I have to stress very much, you need to really perform the work. Otherwise, you're scamming the system. I think that's morally and ethically wrong. So you absolutely need to do the work. And so then after the work is done, they will pay you. Again, it is up to you. You make the arrangements how you wish. If you want to arrange with them that, here's the money that you're going to need to pay me, you do what you feel is ethically right. But as you can imagine, when people are doing offline work, it's not uncommon for me to do free. If I was a carpenter, I would do some free work for my mother-in-law and say, I just need you as a testimonial. So to me, it's a very similar thing. But when it comes to actually getting it in the system, they are going to need to pay you through those funds, through Upwork, and then give you the ranking here. And so I did that with both this account and with this account and got 2 5 out of 5 rankings, and boom, I was off to the races. That was all I needed to really get things going. And like I said, go ahead and absolutely really perform the work, keep the ethics perfect, and then arrange the financials with your contact. If you want to do something offline so they can then pay you online, that's up to you. The fact of the matter is, some of this, I haven't gone through every little piece of Upwork's or other freelancers' terms and conditions, so I can't swear to it that they wouldn't have a problem with it. But the fact is, they're getting their percentage of the pay. They're getting it. So you're not ripping them off. And my point is, from an ethical standpoint, you really need to perform the work and do a great job, and it has to be honest, and they have to be happy with it, and then they give you a 5 out of 5 ranking, and then they give you a testimonial. If you cut any of those corners, then I think ethically you are doing something wrong. Okay, so there you go. Now you've got a couple of jobs. Make them small jobs so that they're not going to take you, a week to do. What I did for one of the jobs was I set up some Google Analytics reports. For me, that was easy. For him, it wasn't easy, the person that I was helping. So it was high value for him, and it didn't take me too long. The other one was I helped someone get their book on the Amazon Kindle. And again, he was just publishing a book. He had a hard copy. So this was high value to him. It didn't take me too long. And I got some great rankings, and I still have good relationships with these people. So, and you can, and there's no reason you can't do it with a relative or a colleague, just like you would with any other business. Friends and family support us in offline business. Why shouldn't they do it with online business? So I'm not telling you to do anything that you have an ethical problem with, but this I was happy and thought it was smart to do, and it has worked out very well for me. And I haven't had any problems. But if you ever do want to discuss it with me, by all means, use my contact information and get in touch with me, and we can discuss it more if you like. So there you go. That's some of the magic of how you get those first jobs, get them on your profile, and you're off to the races with a huge advantage on those other people that are trying to start out with zero job history. I think you can understand just how incredibly important this is. It is time to talk about the money. So earnings, Upwork fees, that sort of thing. So how much is going to go in your bank account when you're doing the work? And what's the right strategy when you're considering all of these things? All right, so let's dive into it. The first thing I want to talk about is small jobs versus long-term jobs. So small jobs, you could define a small job as a low amount that you'll get paid, or it could be a decent amount of money, but it's once you do it, it's over and there's no more work. Where a long-term job is you do maybe a defined project up front, but there's an opportunity this is going to go on for months or years, or turn into an even bigger financial opportunity on a weekly basis, all of those things. So let me show you a couple of examples. And we're going to go into an entire section of this course about looking for work. But I want to point out the impact that small jobs versus long-term jobs when it comes to money. So you want to be thinking about a strategy. Do I want to get a whole bunch of little jobs for $100, $300, $400, $500, $600? They're done and they're over. Or do I want to consider trying to get a few long-term jobs, or maybe 5 long-term jobs with 5 clients that just keep going forever and ever? So there's advantages and disadvantages to each. So here's what I would consider a small job and what it might look like. Someone that's looking at spending $400 or somewhere in that range, $400, and they've got a website made. Please see the file attached to get a general idea what needs to get done, and don't hesitate to reach out. And so most likely when you dive into this further, you're going to say, we need this, 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 and this done to complete our website, the end. And that's sort of basically it. So, it might be worth digging in a little further to see if there's a long-term opportunity, but I don't really see any indication that this is long-term. And in fact, if you go down here, project type, it says one-time project. Now, that said, once you start a relationship with someone, they may want to hire you for other things. And these are all things you can find out as you go into conversations with folks. But I think it's a good idea to be looking for them as you're browsing through and searching through some of the jobs that have been posted. So to me, this one looks and feels and smells like a small job, short-term sort of opportunity. Then I look at this one over here, manage social media marketing for 3 websites. And just the title makes me think, okay, well, maybe this is 3 websites, it's marketing, it's probably ongoing. Now the budget of $100, that makes me think this can't be a very big project. But then when I kind of read through it, they slip in this: person who execute this project to satisfaction will be hired for long term. So just because it doesn't necessarily look like it from a budgeting perspective, maybe they're going to have a really tight pilot project to make sure you know what you're doing, and then they're going to hire you long term. So that could be an exciting opportunity. And they have put down here project type, ongoing project. But don't assume that people necessarily fill these parts out right. You want to go through and read the actual description. So there's something to think about. And I also want to point out here, let me see. I want to point out experience and earnings level. This is a very important component of what I want to get across to you. And we're gonna talk about it more as well. Let me flip back to this job. You can see up here, this person who posted this says, "I'm willing to pay higher rates for the most experienced freelancer." I think we touched on this just a little bit in one of the previous lessons, but let me see. Let me see if I have something else I want to. Yeah, let me go through this just for a second and bring this up. Upwork, in their example, has a way of posting jobs that says, "I'm willing to pay just the entry-level dollar amount, intermediate dollar amount, and I'm willing to pay expert dollar amount." So that means they're posting the job saying, "I'm looking for the best of the best, and I recognize it's going to cost me the most money." And then subsequently, intermediate will cost a little bit less, and entry level is going to cost a lot less. Let me just show you. When you go searching for jobs, and again, we've got a whole section of this course designed to searching and looking for work, but you go to the Find Jobs section here. And when you go into one of your categories, and again, don't worry where exactly I'm going here because we're going to be looking at this in more detail later, but it allows you to filter your job selection. And one of the places you can filter by is entry-level jobs, intermediate jobs, and expert-level jobs. And frankly, I only look at expert-level jobs. I do it simply because I know they're going to pay better. I also like their expectations better. Because sometimes I think people that are trying to squeeze every penny out of everything actually have higher expectations than those that are willing to pay a fair fee for something. So that's some psychology to keep in mind. Just because you're willing to work at an entry level, in dollar compensation wise, don't think that means the jobs are easier. Sometimes those people can be a little bit harder. Okay, so let's go back, and other things that you want to take into account when you're doing jobs and making sure you're getting earning the type of money should be something called milestones. And I think this is a common term across freelance sites, but there may be other terminologies, but basically it could be like a percentage. Once we get a percentage of the work done, you're going to receive a percentage of the payout. This is very important. I think it's always a good idea, especially on bigger projects or brand new clients, to say, you know what, when I get this, and this done, I would like you to pay me this dollar amount or this percentage of the overall project. It shows confidence on your end. It also prevents you from doing a massive amount of work and then having a problem at the end of it. It's always good to see if they'll pay you the way they're supposed to. So that's an important thing. Whenever you can set a milestone, I really recommend it. And then comes freelancing site fees. And if you've done work on freelancing websites, you can really freak out about how much money Upwork or Freelancer, or I'm trying to think of some of the other freelance sites at the top of my head, and what percentage of the job, the income they take. So if you get all hung up on this isn't fair, how dare they take 10% of the money that I earned, or 5% or 20%, like it just seems crazy. What I'm actually going to suggest is don't stress it. Okay? Now, the truth is, as of this recording, Upwork's made some changes to the fees that they charge, and because all of these freelance sites, or virtually all of them, are going to take a percentage of every single dollar that you earn. And whether you think that's fair or not, I would say it is fair because they're building these entire communities. But regardless of what you think about how fair or not it is, don't stress it. Here's what I mean, and this is what's really worked for me, is develop your own relationships with clients. So the value that Upwork, freelancer.com, other sites like this, the value they bring is they help establish trust between a freelancer like us and someone like that is posting a job. And they hold the money in what's called an escrow account. So the person that's hiring you has to actually fund the project, but you don't get the money. And I know many of you are already familiar with this, but then money has to be released once you both come to an agreement. So it helps facilitate this trust in building that relationship. And so I think they deserve money for that. But frankly, how I'm not going to keep a relationship going for years and years and years and continue to pay freelancing websites a percentage of the money. Now, you may think that you should, and if you never really have trust with that client, then I guess it's a good idea. I think it would be crazy to not progress that relationship. And I mean, how do you propose this? So I propose it pretty simply. When I'm having an actual conversation over the phone or on Skype, or on a communication method outside of the freelance job, I say, once I trust the person, I say, you know what, listen, why are we giving a percentage of this to the freelance site? I trust you, you trust me. Why don't we set it at this dollar amount? You pay me through this, whatever method you come up with, checks or PayPal or whatever. And you go with it from that. And it actually helps reduce the amount of money that they're paying, or you get a raise, or you meet somewhere in the middle and they pay less and you get more. So it really makes a lot of sense once you've established that trust. So again, I don't get big hangups on how much the freelance sites want to charge for fees. I pay for it. I basically am paying them. You don't have a choice when you start the work. And eventually I move my relationship to the next level with my own client and they become private, which I think is fair. Maybe somewhere deep in the bowels of these freelance sites say you're not allowed to do that, but I don't think they have any right to say that. So just keep those communications. I think you want to develop your communications with your clients offline anyway. I don't know how much you really want to put through these freelance sites. So I think that's the way to do it. And you want to eventually own that relationship yourself. And that way you don't have to worry about the site fees. So anyway, you can tell that's how I feel about that. And you don't need to get all hung up on those particular fees. So there we go. So we've talked about money, the money, along with earnings and Upwork fees. And we're going to talk more about the earnings levels in particular. Don't discount yourself. Don't discount yourself. And, it's funny from a sales perspective, when you're selling yourself to someone, showing that you're willing to do it for very, very little money is actually not a positive. To me, it shows a lack of confidence, and I frankly don't want to work for people that aren't willing to pay me a decent amount of money anyway. So anyway, I could go on, but I won't. That's the end of this one. We'll see you in the next lesson. Picking the right jobs. So that's the topic for this lesson, and this is very, very important. Do it the right way. You can be efficient, productive. Do it the wrong way, you can lose hours and hours, and frustration levels can be through the roof. So I'm really looking forward to going through this exercise with you and this process with you. Now, we're going to be flipping things on the screen here a fair bit because I want to really walk you through it. Where you go on to sort of get this started. Let me mention a couple things. The first thing on your navigation bar, if you're doing this in Upwork, is to go to Find Jobs. Again, as I record this is their layout. This can always change, but the idea is, where do they keep their projects? Where do they keep their clients' descriptions of the jobs that they're in, projects they're trying to hire for? So if you're working on another freelance site, that's what you want to find, is where are the job postings? Where are the project postings? So that's what we're looking for. Now, in Upwork, when you click on Find Jobs, as the recording of this video, you'll see this is the layout. There's a feed of jobs here in the middle. I have the ability to search for jobs. I have some notifications of jobs that I've been invited to interview for. And I have recent searches, and then I have my job categories. So let me mention a few things here. One, you can see my profile over here, and then I have gotten some invitations to interview. I will tell you that I have not been particularly excited about the types of jobs that I get offers to interview for. It's certainly worth paying attention to and responding to them, even with like a not interested or the various types of responses you can respond with. And perhaps in your particular niche, in your particular market, that you work in, it might be very useful. So definitely check it out. For myself personally, and I'm in the sales and marketing side of things, I haven't found it that helpful, but definitely worth checking out and seeing if it's worth it. Now, The feed here is almost like a Facebook feed, but basically as job postings come in, they're going to appear here. And the most recent job postings at the top, so that's pretty self-explanatory. You can have some saved searches. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. Some recent searches here you can see on the left, and then my categories here down sort of in the bottom left-hand section. This is actually really important, what your categories are, because it's going to determine the default feed of jobs that Upwork will put in front of you if you're using Upwork. And there's probably a similar layout and algorithm for various freelance sites across the net. So your settings are going to be important. So let's just quickly remind ourselves how we set up those job or work categories. You go under Profile Settings on Upwork, and when you scroll down, you will see that I can go into my categories here, and I can select, I believe it's up to 10 categories that I'm interested in looking for work on. Very, very important. If all I selected was legal, obviously I'm not going to see any sales and marketing. I guess that kind of goes without saying, but I do want to stress, read through every single one of these and make sure you're picking the ones that are most pertinent to you. Worth spending a few minutes on that, otherwise you could lose out on some significant opportunities. Okay, so let's go back to find work. And I would say there's really two different ways that I do this. One is I'll do a search. Sometimes for a while I was really into writing and writing scripts. So I would type in maybe something like, let's use this as an example, sales script, if I was going to be writing some sort of a pitch or something like that. And I could see what comes up. It's not a great hit because sometimes sales script appears in some of these telemarketing jobs, but I would still scroll through it. So that's something pretty specific. Maybe more, how about something a little bit different? Let's call it a business plan. So maybe that sort of thing for writing. So again, I can look at, like this one, need help developing a business plan. Business plan here. So that was a bit of a better match. So that's one way you can look for very specific work. So I do recommend using the search when you've got something really specific in mind. Okay, we go back to the Find Jobs main section, and I'm now going to show you the main way that I go through and look for work. Let me just go quickly back to my screen here, though, make sure I'm capturing everything that I wanted to. I actually wanted to mention your expertise level versus projects that you're reviewing. So do you remember, you may or may not remember that. I should have mentioned this when we were in the profile section. So I'll go back to profile. And under profile settings, you need to make sure that you have yourself set up as an entry level, intermediate, or an expert. So consider the categories of work that you're looking for. Would you consider yourself brand new at that, intermediate, or expert? I would encourage you to pick expert if you can at all. Now, if you feel that's dishonest or you're going to fail doing that, then okay, go in intermediate. I really don't recommend going entry level unless that's, absolutely your only choice here. Okay. All right. So that's important. So let's go back to find work. All right. And the way I start looking for work, and this is how I spend most of my time looking for work, is simply by browsing the My Categories section. And it's a little bit weird how Upwork does it, because you actually need to come down to My Categories and click on one of the My Categories. And then you are presented with a whole new screen where you can kind of filter things in and out. You have subcategories, job type, experience level, client history. So all of a sudden you're given all these filters of how you want to look for work. So you're not searching it, but you're saying in this, show me everything that matches these criteria, which I have found to be more effective, and I end up seeing more that way. So let's do that. Let me show you what I would typically do. I have my category of sales and marketing, and that's where I'm in. So what I do is I check off all subcategories. Therefore, I'm going to get all of these. And then I can choose between hourly or fixed price. I'm actually going to keep that at both. And then here we go, experience level, entry level, intermediate, and expert. So it'll default to show you all three of these. But I almost always now, I only look at expert jobs. I like their expectations. I like the people that I get to meet in that. And I obviously like the money better. So that's what I'm going to look at. You can filter out client history. I tend not to do that because even though someone may have no hires and no ranking history, I still want to see what they're doing because it might be the perfect match for me. And it might be, I'm thinking back to one particular job. It was a fantastic job. I got paid a lot of money. It was for script, doing some writing work. And it took some time to get through that job, but it was very good. And they had no hires history. Clay. Okay, so client info, I can check off these if I want. Previous clients and payment verified. That's not really something I worry about. You can have set a fixed price budget. So if you're looking for all the fixed price jobs, you can set this between 0 to 100. So if I'm not interested in working for less than $50, or this doesn't really perform very well. It has to refresh the page every time, but $100 or more, then I would set it there. I really don't worry about that. I still want to see what they are, even though I'm not going to do a job for 50. If it's a pilot project and there's ongoing work, I don't want to miss it because I filtered that out. And then project length, frankly, I don't worry about that one. And hours per week, I really don't worry too much about that one. These are ones you can play around with, but unless you're getting so many jobs you can't even read through them, I would recommend just leaving these to the default. Okay, so it might seem like I spent a lot of time doing that, but I do think that it's important. So now I've done this, and here's what I think is really, really important, and it saves me tons of time because it's a little annoying to do that. You can now save this search to your job feed, and it'll actually show up. Well, I'll show you in a second. So what I can do is click on Save This Search, and I would call it Sales and Marketing High Paying. Because remember, I selected only expert level jobs, which are high paying jobs. I've already saved this, but what you would do is click on Add. And then when you come back to the Find Jobs section, you're going to see it right here, Sales and Marketing High Paying. So you may prefer to have 6 or 7 different save searches if you want to focus on one thing or another. I prefer just to kind of browse through anything that I think might be good work. But if, for example, if I was only going to do writing for a while, or maybe business plan writing, I could do sales and marketing, business plan design, or business plan writing and have that as a search. I can be as specific or as general as I like. I like to be general so I don't miss any opportunities and then quickly browse through things that are relevant to me. You may want to have a really narrow search, totally up to you. And there's good case to make for doing it both ways. All right, so saving your ideal search, that's important. Okay, we're going to talk about a few things here, and then we're going to go into some and look at them. So client location, their ranking, their hire rate, total spend, average hourly rate. You may remember we talked about that a little while back. And learning about your client is very important so you don't end up wasting a lot of your time. The recency of a job being posted. I didn't used to worry about this too much, but the more I've done, the more I really believe this matters. So that's pretty straightforward. Let me go into sales and marketing high paying. And let's look at a job. Let's see. Social media manager. So this was posted 1 hour ago. For some reason, they have a budget of $50. That seems a little weird to me. But again, maybe this is just some sort of a pilot project. So that's 1 hour ago. Now, if I load more jobs, this is how you continue to, they've changed this. They used to have multiple pages, but now you just keep loading more jobs, and the feed just continues on. But depending what freelance site you're on, it could have page 1 of results, page 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to, 50 or whatever. You go infinite, almost to infinity. So now if I look at this, well, let me just keep loading more jobs. I actually find this a little bit annoying because I'm having to kind of click through this a little, taking longer than it would if I had multiple pages to look through. There's a reason I'm doing this. I'll explain it in a second. Okay, so the simple fact is, this is math. If I respond to a job within an hour of it being posted, compared to being posted 1 day ago, let's see, Amazon SEO expert. So if I look at that, look at this, 20 to 50 proposals. This particular topic must be very popular, because that's a lot of proposals. But in some markets, that's going to be the case. So look at that. I mean, if I was going to do this one and I was going after this type of work, I would need to get in on this within the first couple of hours. So let me go back. This was posted 27 minutes ago. And I can see there are less than 5 proposals. By the way, I wouldn't be able to tell this if I didn't have the paid Upwork account. So this is the sort of benefits to having a premium account on freelance websites. So for this one, if this was a job I was interested in, I would say, whoa, I want to jump right on this. And you can say, well, how am I supposed to check it all day? How can I do this? Well, you can complain about that if you want. But the truth is, if you set this up nicely, keep this page open, click on your, your feed, and whenever you're available to check it, your noon hours, or if you already are running your own business throughout the day, or just in the evenings, people are posting jobs here all the time. So just keep checking it out and refreshing your search. I really do recommend getting in on the bid process early. I mean, it would be nice to think that no matter, even if you were going against 20 competitors versus 3, that the person that posted the job is going to be fair and look through them all. No, they're excited when they post that job, and the sooner you get to them and start a conversation with them, the better. This isn't like a formal government job posting where they have regulations where they have to look through all resumes and all of that. No. They're excited about their job. They want to find someone quickly in most cases. Okay. So so don't pay too much attention to when the job posting expires. That's another thing you just don't need to worry about. So number of proposals, I already showed that to you. Number of people that are being interviewed, the number of people that they're interviewing. So what does that mean? I don't know this for an absolute fact, but it's my experience that what Upwork, for example, calls an interview is simply, did the job poster send a message to someone about the job? Like, I'd like to meet with you, or it could be a simple message like, what experience do you have in this particular area? Could have been that the person that wrote the proposal asked a question, and the person that posted the project is just answering that question. So, but it does matter. It does show engagement. So if, for example, a person is already interviewing, let me see if I can find one here. Let's go back to this Amazon one. I guess this is a different one. This shows right here, interviewing 0. If they had 20 proposals and they were already interviewing 7 or 8, I'd be like, well, I don't know. I may have lost out on my opportunity there. It's going to be a tough road. But, if they've got between 5 to 10 proposals and they haven't interviewed anybody yet, then not so bad. Not so bad. Now, the next thing I wanted to point out was bid range. So bid range, again, if you have a premium account, you can see it right here. The high bid on this particular job is 500, the low bid is 200, and the average is 350. Sometimes you can do a little bit of math and say, wait a minute, the average is 350. That probably means there's just these 2 bids, right? Because halfway between, do the math, halfway between 200 and 500 is 350. There's probably only 2 proposals. You don't always get that lucky. You can't always figure that out, but in this case we did. So that's interesting. And as I was saying before, picking the right jobs, we're not getting into the proposal stage yet, but I would tend to bid not quite at 500, but maybe 450 or 400, something like that. because I like to be on the high end, but I don't want them to write me off because I'm the most expensive. Okay, what else? Last viewed by client. So this is interesting. So they may not be interviewing anybody, but are they paying real close attention to the project, the job that they posted? And let's see, in this case, I'm not seeing when they last viewed it, and that might be because they posted it only an hour ago. Let's go to a bit of an older job. It's been around longer. Let's see if we can see exactly where that is. Often that'll show up as when have they last looked at it. And maybe that only comes up after one day. Let's keep looking here. Okay, so I found one here called a job called AdWords Manager, the Google pay-per-click platform. And that doesn't really matter, but if you look down here, you can see last viewed by client 1 day ago. I like to pay attention to this because it gives me a sense, and it's got tons of proposals. It's been several days, I think, since they posted it. Posted 3 days ago. And this is a very competitive type of work. But last viewed by client 1 day ago gives me a sense that these people, the person that posted this job, they're paying attention. So, and I think it'll even show you how many hours ago. That can be important because if someone posted something 7 days ago and they had, their last viewed was 6 days ago, you kind of wonder if they're not paying attention. So something else to keep in mind. It also kind of something you can, keep looking at and get a sense of what's going on. So I mentioned saving jobs. Well, actually, I mentioned saving searches. What saving jobs is basically adding a job posting as a favorite. So if I go back to find jobs, I can look at the jobs here and say, oh, this might be something I'm interested in. I'd like to look at it later. Just click the little heart. And then later on, I come back to my saved jobs. And it'll be there for me. So I can then go in and read a little bit more carefully and place a proposal. But just a word to the wise, don't spend all your time saving jobs and never doing proposals. It's easy to do that. Always looking for the next best thing. Okay, so that's sort of where we're at when it comes to picking the right jobs. Don't just wait for people to contact you. Don't just go willy-nilly. Is that an expression? Don't just go randomly hunting around doing every kind of job search you can. I recommend using this, going in and setting up some important predetermined searches or category listings, I should say, and then saving that. So then you can go through those and, go through them at first. If you're really being aggressive, check it out 10 times a day and then just bid on a couple, 1 or 2 a day, the ones that you're really interested in, and get in on them within the first couple of hours. You're going to really put yourself at a major advantage doing that. Yeah, so there you go. So that's how to approach picking the right jobs. It's now time to discuss jobs to avoid. So we were talking about in our last lesson picking the right jobs, but there's sort of the opposite end of that. Let's look for the red flags. So initially a job might look great or a project might look great, whether you're looking for it on Upwork or Freelancer or one of the other freelance websites. But keep your eyes open for red flags and things that may make it not such a good job. We're going to go through a couple of examples. First, I want to take you through the criteria that we want to pay attention to. Then we'll have a look at a couple of examples of what I consider jobs to avoid. And as we go through this, my area is in the writing and sales, marketing, different things like that. But you could be, of course, a programmer. You could be an author that has nothing to do, like fiction author. You could be doing graphic design. And so I don't mean to not touch on your particular markets. I'm just trying to give you examples that I'm the most familiar with. But keep in mind, these are all principles for any type of market that you're in. Okay, so hope that makes sense. Jobs to avoid. I think you should almost generally always avoid those looking to pay for entry level. Unless you're willing and happy to work for $3 or $4 or $5 an hour, I'd avoid those jobs. Not just because they're low paying. I worry about the psychology of the person that's coming to these freelance sites wanting to pay so little. And sometimes those people can have unreasonable expectations. Not everyone, someone might have very reasonable expectations, but I just worry about that. I'm not personally interested, so I think you should avoid it, unless again, that is what you're looking to do. So just proceed with caution. A low budget amount. So, meaning I don't mean that it's a low hourly rate, but it could be, I want you to do all this work for $60. And you're like, oh my goodness, So it effectively ends up being a low hourly rate because you know how much time it's going to take. Again, I worry about people that have that psychology. There are some people that have no clue how much work something can take. And they think you come to these internet sites and people basically do the work for nothing. And anyway, not good. And this ties right into what I was just talking about, unreasonable expectations. They list out 10 things and they say, I'm going to pay you $70 for this. Very unprofessional job description write-up. I always get annoyed at people that say, looking for a marketing rock star. It just, that might be more of a pet peeve, but the idea of, if someone's having trouble spelling, if someone hasn't even taken the time to proofread their own project, proceed with caution on those. Not saying it would never be. I mean, I've made plenty of spelling mistakes myself, so I'm not suggesting everyone needs to be perfect, but just take it with a grain of salt and pay attention to those that are doing very unprofessional job description write-ups. Occasionally, you'll see a job description that's literally like one sentence. You got to wonder how serious that person is about finding and hiring someone if they're not even willing to put more than a sentence into the job description. If you don't match most of their preferred qualifications, be careful about overreaching. I've encouraged you to be aggressive and assertive and have confidence in yourself, but don't go after jobs that you actually believe you'll fail at. Not only is it's going to be bad for everything, and then you're going to end up with a bad rating and a bad feedback possibly, and a big mess. So be careful about that. Questionable client location, ranking, hire rate, total spend, average hourly rate. Look for all of those criteria. We'll see if we can look at that as we go along. When I say questionable client location, let's say there's a country that you have no experience with, you know nothing about. It might be absolutely fine, but you don't really have any experience with people or working with people in that country and expectations, communications, because it is different. So just proceed with caution on that, or maybe even avoid a job like that until you get a little bit more comfortable. Old jobs and projects. Yeah, so talked about this, I think, in the last lesson. If something's been posted 10 days ago and the person that posted it hasn't looked at that, as they've got 20 proposals and they haven't gone back and looked, at what they posted and who's applying for 9 days, that's probably a waste of your time. Okay? And those jobs that have a very high number of proposals. Now, occasionally you're going to need to compete and you're going to want to compete against very popular projects, and go for it. I'm not discouraging you from doing that, but generally speaking, I'd avoid those types of jobs because there's so much more opportunity out there. And then those where the bid range is extremely low. It may not end up being worth your time if everyone is bidding and to do a job for $25, $25 to $50, and you're going to bid, and you would want to bid something like $150. Probably best in general to avoid those jobs. There's exceptions to all of these, but I'm giving you the general rules. Okay, let's look at what I would consider a couple of bad jobs. So here's one called Write a Gaming Novel Similar to Minecraft Diaries. Now, this might be right up my alley. Let's say it was. So the first thing I'm going to notice is Ooh, $50 budget. Okay, that's something to be concerned about, but I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep looking. Entry level. Okay, so I know they're not looking to pay me very much for my time, so that's now concerning. This needs to be a 7,000 word children's humorous story. I'm like, 7,000 words? That's not short. And, for $50 is what they're thinking about. So that's, is that an unreasonable expectation? In my mind, I think it is. What else do we have here? Oh, take note of this preferred qualifications, because I don't think we've actually talked about it. Some like to have a job success score at least 90. A lot of this ties back, I believe, to your feedback and your scores, but I actually don't at this point have a 90% score. Mine's in the 80s. That doesn't mean you shouldn't bid on these jobs. Don't worry, you can still bid on these jobs even though they've got it as a preferred qualification. And rising talent. A rising talent is another something or other that Upwork has. Again, I don't even worry about that, frankly. So what else do we want to look at here? Client location. It's in the U.S. That's fine. I'm used to working in the U.S. How old is this campaign? This was posted 8 days ago. Okay. Interesting that it has less than 5 proposals. A good job posted that long ago would normally have like 10, 20, 30 proposals. So that actually might be a little alarming that nobody's bidding on it. And then what's the bid range on this job? Actually, I'm looking at this and it doesn't even show a bid range, which I think means no one has bid on this job, and understandably so. So you kind of look at every criteria that we went over and you're like, this is a job I want to avoid. And it might only, once you get used to this, you'll scan this thing in about 10 seconds and be done with it. Let's look at another one. Promote 5 books on social media. That's interesting. Okay, first thing that jumps out at me, $10 budget? Really? Entry level? Yikes. Okay, here's something good. The client has a good ranking, so I like that. He spent a total of $89. That's not very exciting. He does hire for every job he posts. He hires about 1 out of every 3. What else do I want to see here? Here's the description. Well, frankly, at this stage, I've already kind of written this one off. Look, I guess he's got some people have bid. The high bid is $10 and the low bid is $6.25. Okay, I think I've seen enough. This has failed my test, and I'm going to avoid this job. Now, these were 2 pretty extreme cases, like 2 pretty low amounts. Some of these you're going to have to think about a little bit harder. Some of them might match everything you want, but then you get down to the proposals and it says, 50 proposals. Okay, probably a little too late on that one, if that's the case. So this is how I analyze these jobs. And usually what I'm looking for is the positives, but just as much the negatives to eliminate jobs that I'm looking at. So, okay, hope that made sense. And again, it's a good idea just to go ahead and use this checklist as you're going through jobs and which ones you want to avoid, helping you filter them out. Hopefully this was helpful. It is now time to talk about proposals. So, you found a job that you want, and you want to engage, you want to get the attention of the person that has posted the job or the project. And generally this is called proposals. It might be called something else depending on the freelance site you're on. They may call it a bid. But you're trying to win the work. You're trying to get the job. And I will tell you right now, to try and get your attention, that if there's one video that you watch in this entire course, and there's one that you sit up and pay attention to, this is it. Because I believe I have I believe in this video I have here the biggest secret to success in freelancing, particularly on freelancing community websites, type of websites where there's lots and lots of job postings, lots of people trying to get the work. Okay? Have your attention. Let's go. All right. The first thing I want to show you is here's an example of a job. When I want to go ahead and submit the proposal, here it is right here. This is the example in Upwork. Other sites will have a different way to do it, but you submit a proposal and it's going to get you to fill in some fields. And what it starts with here is the terms, and requires, 2 connects. Again, those are the things that you have on your account that are required to actually basically pay to be able to submit a proposal. You get a number of connects for free, and then you get a bunch more if you end up paying for them. So you put your bid in, and look at this. Upwork service fee is $120 in this example here. $700, then $120, and then $580 is what I would end up receiving. This service fee, as I was talking to you in one of the previous videos, this can change depending on the work that you're doing. So don't get bummed out by this. This is just a cost of doing business on Upwork, for example. And anyway, so then it shows what you'll receive, the estimated duration. So how long is it going to take to do this project? Sometimes this is almost impossible to predict based on their description of the job. You really don't know, but just put something in. Don't put, don't err on this on the lower side, and then you can always revise that after you have your discussion. So I would say something like less than 1 month on a project, that's of this size and scope, just looking at it. Then I have my cover letter. Then I can also list links to some of my work. I can have attachments if I want, and then I can submit a proposal. Now, some people that, and let me just back up. The cover letter is basically your pitch. This list links that work. This may be a new thing that Upwork is doing, or this may have been a particular field that this project person that put the project on has requested, because sometimes you'll have 2 or 3 questions that the client will want you to answer as well. So, and you've got to answer them. Don't bother submitting if you're not going to answer the specific questions and fields. So you need to have something to put in here and in here, okay? And do it the way they want it. Sometimes they'll sneak into the proposal. If it's a long proposal, they'll say, use the word elephant in the first sentence of your proposal, which sounds crazy, but they're trying to get rid of and weed out the people that are just cutting and pasting their resume everywhere. Okay, which is a good indication of how to not do a proposal properly, is to cut and paste it everywhere. So this is sort of what you're looking at as far as technically how to submit that proposal. Okay, let's go back to it and let's continue on. So when to propose? We've talked about this a bit. I say get your proposal in as quickly as possible. If you can get it in the first couple of hours, awesome. You want, as a goal of your proposal, and I think this is where some people don't get it, your goal of your proposal is to engage and start a conversation with the client. Now, admittedly, I've won jobs, or at least one that I'm thinking of right now, where I never actually got on the phone or on Skype and had a live conversation with someone, but almost always you're going to have a conversation with someone, at least a chat back and forth, live interaction. So that is the goal of your proposal. The goal is not to win the entire job with one proposal. It's to start an engagement. So really go for that. And that itself may set you aside. And the fact that you want to have a conversation with them, you want to have a discussion about their project before you're just awarded the job, that can help set you apart, and it shows confidence. So very important. Okay? Now, here it is. Drum roll, please. The big secret to success in a proposal is to actually, pay attention, is to actually start doing the job, the project, the work in the proposal. I hope that makes sense. So, let me give you a couple of examples. If someone asks for me to write a sales script for a telemarketer that's going to call and sell life insurance to senior care to senior care homes or something, or maybe it's to seniors, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the first 2 paragraphs of that script, an example of what it might be, and I'm going to put that right in the proposal. Here's what I think would be a great way to get their attention. Here's the top 3 questions that I would ask them. Here's the 2 objections I would expect, and how you would handle them. No one else is going to do that. I really believe this is so rare. You're going to stand out so much. Now, let me give you another example. What if it's a programming job? and they're saying, I need a program that'll do the X, Y, and Z. And you can say, well, here's the code that I'm thinking will actually work, and actually include some of the actual programming code in it. Or if someone's asking for a logo, instead of just giving them examples of logos that you've done for other people, say, here's what I'm thinking. Here's some of my initial thoughts for your logo. What do you think of these? And actually put a couple of quick drafts. Now, I don't want you to spend any more than 20 or 30 minutes doing that. An hour at the absolute most. And you might be objecting to this, saying, well, I don't have time to do that. What do you mean? I'm giving them the work for free? That doesn't make any sense. Trust me, this is how to win the job. Because the deal is here, while everyone else is telling them how great they are and why they should hire them and what they did for everybody else, what you're doing is showing them work that you can do for them. They're seeing the work. You're not convincing them theoretically. You are showing them what you're going to do for them because you've actually started it. I hope this is resonating. It's harder than copying and pasting a resume. But I fully believe, I've had so many conversations with prospects, and I'm convinced it's because of this. They always want to, they get excited about your proposal because, oh wow, I like the look of that logo. Oh, I like the opening paragraph. Let's say you're writing a business plan. Well, I'm not suggesting that you write the entire business plan, but you could list the outline of how you would do their business plan. How easy would that be? That wouldn't even take you that long. But not just a generic business plan, their business plan. Let's say they're a lawyer in family law. You write an outline of how you're going to help get them funding in the business plan that you're doing. Or someone is asking for like a screenplay or something. Then you would say, here's what I think would be a great opening scene for your play. I'm trying to think of some other examples, but you get the idea, right? I'm actually going to show you some examples of proposals that I have done. Okay, so we're going to get back to this, but you can tell I'm passionate about this, is no one is doing this. You do this, you separate yourself from everybody else. And I believe that even if you don't win the job, they're going to remember you. Okay, and I believe it will increase your likelihood of winning jobs dramatically. And I'm not talking theoretically. This is how I approach this. And this is what I consider this one little item, the biggest secret to success in freelancing. Okay. Pricing. Everyone thinks that pricing is the most important thing. It isn't. And people often think that you gotta be right competing with the best price. Not at all. I think I've mentioned this before. If you can help it, don't be the top price. But also don't go for the bottom. I would put yourself somewhere between the average to the top. Somewhere in there, even closer to the top. That's fine. Because you're going to impress these guys so much with how you write these proposals because you're demonstrating what you're worth. Okay? All right. And a good business owner recognizes that, whether they pay $700 or something or $1,000 for something, it's not nearly as important as it is if they get a great person or someone that's a slob or a loser. Okay? So your proposal is you're demonstrating how you do the work. Okay. Time management, quantity versus excellence. So when I'm talking about time management, I'm talking about writing proposals. So you could go out and say, today I am going to submit 20 proposals. Well, don't try and do it my way. You'll be exhausted. You're going to have to work day and night to get 20 proposals in. Go for 3 great ones. 3 jobs that you actually want, and do the proposals up like I'm suggesting. And if you did 3 a day for a while, you're going to end up with some opportunities. I believe that. That's been my experience. Okay. And again, this kind of comes back to you're doing the opposite of what most people are doing. So you start to stand out automatically. Okay, templates versus custom proposals. So this again comes back to copying and pasting your resume into that section of the proposal. And this is where you're going to end up putting it, is in the cover letter section. And while it's definitely tempting to do, you need to customize it. Now, the good news is you don't have to write it from scratch. Once you've done a bunch of them, like let's say I've written up a good proposal for, business plans. Well, I can now use, 80 or 90% of that proposal for everyone that I submit a proposal to help them write a business plan. But I still need to customize 10% of it because that's actually what they're going to care about, or maybe 20% of it. Proposal format. Here's how, if I had to recommend one format, one layout of how to do proposals, this is it. And I normally have all of these components with the exception sometimes of not having one of them. But here's what, I'm going to show you them here. And I think I have 3 or 4 that I want to show you and walk you through. The proposal format should include an opening, basically an opening sentence or two that stands out. It creates curiosity, it's memorable, and it's attention getting. Your goal for the opening is that they keep reading the proposal. Like, imagine if you had 10 proposals to read through. How quickly that gets boring. And a lot of these people, and the people you want to work for, are highly successful business people, and they don't screw around. If you lose them, you lose them. So get that going. Second thing is do the job. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. The big secret is do the job. Start doing the work. Here's how I see the opening paragraph of this article that you want me to write. Here's how the blog entry is going to go. Here's the coding format that I'm going to use. You'll have to excuse me because I don't know that much about programming, but explain. You can either make an outline of how you would attack the job, their particular job from a programming standpoint, or say, here's a particular snippet of code that I've been able to use and I think will work for you. It's got to be about them. This can't be examples of what you've done for others. This must be about them, their project, their business. Okay? And then we get into experience and testimonials. So you notice the first 2 things here. When someone writes a job and a project and you're going to bid on it, it makes sense that you tell them about you, right? But people really just care about themselves. These clients, they care about their own success and their own business. So that's why your opening statement really needs to be attention getting and ideally about them and their success. And that's why you start doing the job immediately. All of a sudden, you're talking about them and their business and their job. They're interested. Now you got their attention. Now you say, here's some of my experience and testimonials. Okay? Very important. You might be thinking, well, that's already on my profile. I'll just tell them to go look at my profile. This is another secret, smaller secret, but also important. List out your experience and your testimonials, including the 5 out of 5 ranking that you got, including the quote, and put it right in the proposal. And you say, well, that doesn't make sense. They should just go to my profile to read that. They're not going to go to your profile and read it. And even if they do, how does it possibly hurt you to list that you get 5 out of 5 rankings? You're going to put that right in here. People like if you've ever looked, if you're a web developer, you'll know what I mean by this. And if you've looked at Google Analytics and you spend any time analyzing what people read and how quickly they go, they're not going over to your profile and looking you up. It's unless they've already kind of decided they like you. Okay? So put it in there. Okay, and then your approach to the job. Oh, one other quick thing here. In your experience and testimonials, one thing I like to do with my experience is I actually like to say, I accomplished this. I raised the opt-in rate or the application submission rate on this particular web page that I built by 20%. And here's what my client had to say about it. And I got a 5 out of 5 ranking on it. Okay, so I've shared an experience and presented my testimonial sort of all in one. So then I talk about my approach to the job. Now this is different. Approach to the job is different than doing the job. Doing the job is you really want to begin to get into the nitty gritty of the actual work. The approach to the job can be more of an outline. So if I'm going to be doing a marketing plan for someone, I'll list out, here's my 10 steps to a marketing plan, and I'll list them out. It's more generic, but it also explains my approach to the job. And then something very, very, very important at the end of your proposal is ask to meet with them. Some people are trying to win the job in the proposal. And it doesn't make sense because and if you're bidding on the right jobs, there's a big commitment. They're going to want to talk to you anyway, whether you want to talk to them or not. They want to talk to you before they hire you. So very important that you ask to meet with them. And remember, you're normally dealing with, well, in this case, we're dealing with online freelance communities. So say something like, I'm happy to discuss this with you by phone or by Skype or on the Upwork site, wherever you want. My experience has always been to say phone or Skype, and that's worked very well for me. Okay, so now let me bring up my proposal, some sample proposals. What I've done over the years is I have kept sort of a scratch pad, if you will, and really just a copy and pasting of many of my proposals. And I'm going to share some of them here with you now. And I've outlined, sort of color-coded here, the opening of my proposal. Remember, curious, it stands out, it's memorable, it gets their attention. So that's going to be in blue. The doing of the job, which I kind of went on and on and on about, because I think you get my sense that I think it's important, that's going to be in green. Experience and testimonials in the proposal, that's in red. My approach to the job is in purple. And then finally in brown here, the ask to meet. So let's look at one here. I'm just going to scroll down. I just have this in a Word document, as you can see. And the first example number 1, is script writing. So this was someone that wanted help with a sales script. And so what I did, here's my opening. And I'm going to be reading to you. I hope you don't find this boring, but this is just so important. In fact, I'm going to zoom in here in case that font's a little small. So the first thing I said is, hello, let me start by providing examples of my ongoing success in script writing, both telemarketing and email communications. I provide scripting for 2 major call center clients presently. So I'll tell you, this wasn't quite as great an opening as I've done in some of my other ones. But this to me is the one that should catch them. I provide scripting for 2 major call center clients presently. So in this case, I believe this was going to help me stand out. And then I go into, in this case, this is not in the exact same order as I have it listed here. I go into examples of my work with testimonials. I literally list out 5 out of 5 rating, 5 out of 5 rating. Now, this one was a job I had that I also put in here. I don't have a 5 out of 5 rating because it had nothing to do with the freelance site, but this was very important, so I listed it anyway. And they're like, well, how can they verify that? They can verify these other ones. They're probably going to trust me on this one. And then I have another one here. And then this is some additional write-up. I won't bore you by reading this, but then I go into doing the work. And what I'm saying is, let me give you an idea for my initial thinking for your script. And here it is. So this is the actual script. So this is an initial draft that I'm saying, here's the script based on what I know now that I would write for you. Here's an example of it. I'm sure nobody else is doing this, okay, for them. And then I list a couple of other things here, and then I say, here's my call to action. I hope you found my proposal helpful. I'd like to discuss this opportunity with you further by phone or Skype or email. So there's my call to action. I asked for what I want. I want to have a discussion with them. Also shows confidence, and it's to the point. All right, let's go to the next one. This was a training program. Okay, so this one's a little bit more catchy. This is the opening. I won't waste your time with a generic proposal or generic bio of myself. So what I'm doing here is I'm basically feeding into the fact that I know they're reading a lot of resumes and proposals. So I'm telling you, I'm not going to waste your time. And then I kind of lay out what I'm going to do. So I start with this one with my direct relevant experience. And again, I provide those rankings. Some of these are similar to the other ones. And then I give them my approach. You can see the order is not always the same, but here's my approach to the job. And then I say, now in this case, because they want to put together a training program. Well, I'm not going to actually, I don't even have the materials to put the training together. I don't know enough yet to actually, to write up training. Plus it would be a massive amount of work. But what they did provide in the project was all the different types of topics they wanted to cover. So what I did was I said, here's what I would do. Here's the actual entire outline of the training program. And I listed out this topic with a screencast, with a reference guide, and a test 1, 2, 3. This part with a screencast video, a reference guide, and a test 1, 2, 3. It's very repetitive, but it's incredibly detailed. And they're going to see all of their language about their organization and what they wanted to train listed over and over and over. Okay? And so this is why I did it that way. I'm feeding back to them what they care about, showing that I know how to put an agenda together for their training program. And again, I close it with a call to action, wanting to speak with them, have a conversation. All right, next one. I've got a couple more here I want to share with you. It's the same idea. This one was the way they titled it was almost more of a job versus a project, marketing director. And so in this case, I wanted to write something compelling. I said, see, you've already have a number of proposals in, and truthfully, I doubt a written resume for me is going to look that much different than some of your other qualified candidates. So I think I've now got their attention, right? I'm being cute. And it's okay to be cute, but you don't want to be disrespectful. So I said, I'll include it below regardless. But then what I've done here is, what I'd really like to do is share with you a 3-minute screencast video I made for your project and job. So I'm actually, just like I'm making these sort of videos, and you can use a service called Screencast-O-Matic. Screencast-O-Matic. And they'll actually, it's actually a free service you can use. I'm using a paid service, but there's actually a free service when you can do up little screencast videos like this. And almost everyone else is not going to do this. Probably no one that is bidding on the job. And so you've separated yourself just by making that extra effort. And then they're going to hear your voice. And you can put something on the video, like you can put a couple slides together, maybe a little flow chart, something like that. And what I said here is I want to share with you my approach to marketing that'll drive leads, opportunities, and sales. So I'm showing him how I want to do, I'm doing the work by doing a video for him and talking about their particular strategy that I'm envisioning for them. That's important. This part has to be about them. And what's a little different here is I actually call for the meeting up here. And then I continue to go down and list my accomplishments down here. And then along with my experience. And this is actually pretty long when you can see I have my marketing approach here. So I actually kind of went all out on this one. And then I guess I once again asked to discuss the opportunity. So I'm dragging on here a bit, but I'm hoping this is driving it home. I have one other example that I want to show you. But the idea is get their attention, do some of the work, and lay it out how you're going to do their job. So in this one, I actually said, your project caught my attention. Surprisingly, not that many businesses recognize the power of an effective sales letter and how it can drive business. So I'm actually complimenting them because what they wanted to do was a video sales letter. All right, and I'm saying for you, here's the process of how to accomplish this video sales letter. There's 12 steps. And so I'm beginning to do the work for them, saying this is how it's all laid out. And once again, we have work experience and that call to action. Let's get on the phone or Skype. So once you do a bunch of these, you can start to get fast at it and better at it, and you can start to use some of the language that you've used before. But I think you can imagine that most people are not going to take the effort to do this, and they're not going to be as smart about it. So I'm super excited. Thank you so much for watching this entire video. I know this is probably the longest video of this course, and it's probably also it is the most important. It is the most important lesson. And you do this and you follow this strategy, you're not going to be like all your competitors. And if you've done freelancing before and you've had some success, I think you'll find your success is going to dramatically improve. If you've tried before and never even gotten a response from someone, or you've never been able to get to that meeting stage, then I think you're going to find that this is really going to take you to the next level. And again, I'm not trying to brag about this, but this is not theoretical. These are actual proposals I have put in. These strategies have absolutely landed me plenty of work, a lot of work, and have enabled me to make a great living. So I'm really excited for you to try these and to take this approach. Okay, in our last lesson, we talked about proposals, and the purpose of proposals would be to land or to get a meeting, could be by Skype or by phone, or even within the freelance community itself, which sometimes offers voice over IPs or webcam meetings. But the whole purpose of it was to get a meeting. All right, now we've got a meeting. Now what, right? Now, if you have a sales background, you're probably comfortable with it. If you don't have a sales background, that's okay. I want to give you the sort of the process to follow. And I want to encourage you to be yourself and don't worry about, well, I'm not a salesperson, because sort of typical, quote unquote, typical sales way that people that they think about the way salespeople act is really not the way we want to operate anyway. And good salespeople that are listening to this very much know that. So let's talk about the process you want to take them through. So on your first meeting, first of all, just act professional. Okay, don't be overly jubilant and excited and giddy, and be super happy and thank you and agree with everything they say profusely. Sometimes I hear people do that, and like, just act like a normal, rational human being and have a nice discussion. Okay. The second thing is you do want to build rapport. So you have to match the tone of the person you're speaking with. So if the person wants to shoot the breeze or have just a little bit of small talk, go ahead and do that. That's absolutely great, in fact. And it's ideal if you can do that. Now, here's what's going to happen at this stage in your meeting is the person you're talking to may take charge and say, okay, well, I want to ask you a few questions. I want to talk to you. You mentioned this in your proposal. Let's talk about it. Let's go through it. And if they do that, that's okay. But if there's an opportunity for you to take charge and they're sort of laid back, or they just say, well, tell me what you're thinking. Tell me more about yourself. Then what I recommend is that you introduce quickly what you do. Give them a 2-minute background on you. You can pretty much just use the proposal that you've already shared with them. Talk about some of your accomplishments and how you've had success in the field, whether it be writing or programming or web development or graphic design or legal work, whatever it is. Just talk about what you do and why you're passionate about it, why you love it. And then what you want to do is quickly turn that and start talking about their business and say, from what I saw in your project and what I've looked up on your website, this is what I understand about your business. And then you turn that into asking them questions that focus on their business and their background. And as good salespeople know, it's always better if your prospect, the person that you want to sell to, in this case, you're selling yourself and your own services, you want to get them talking. And what you want to get them talking about is the business and the project, and not so much have it all focused on you and what you can or can't do. So you want to understand. So, you can ask them things like, well, what is the main product or service that you offer in your business? I understand it's this. I understand that you do this. Is that right? And, share a little bit about what you might know, but then ask them additional questions about their business and what is it, how long have they been working on this project or campaign or whatever it is that they're doing, and go from there. and ask them a few questions. And if they're eager and happy to talk about it, keep it going. If it seems like they're annoyed that you're asking them so many questions, which, by the way, I don't really see that happen very often. People are usually very eager. Business people are very eager to talk about their business and what they're up to, and they'll let you know so much. You'll find out information that you would never have otherwise known, and you can use it to your advantage in landing the job. So after they tell you specifics about the project and what it's about and what they're trying to accomplish, share with them what you're thinking about the job and thinking about the project, meaning that you can even talk a little bit more than what you know how I talked about doing the work in the proposal video? Start saying, well, you know what I'm thinking about what you're doing here is I would recommend A, B, and C for you is what I'm thinking. And then get their response to that. So if you're talking about a website design, you can say, well, what I'm thinking we should have the focus of your page be about trying to, get people to fill out their form, get people to fill out their contact information is sort of the top priority. Let's give away a PDF that you have available as another part of the website. Let's have your contact information on part of the website, and then let's promote your main service on this page. So you start sharing your thinking about the project. That's an example of a web design and web layout. And then get their response, because they've got some thoughts and they know more about it than you do, frankly, at this stage, at least the business side of it. Okay? And then based on their response and how the conversation's going, if they're already super into you and they're kind of talking assumptively like that you're going to start, then you can almost assume they're ready to get going. I would say it normally takes a little bit longer than that. And so what I would recommend, if you don't feel that you've got the business won and they're not saying when can you start, let's talk about money, your bid was a little bit higher than I expected, what's the best you can do? If they don't start talking about that, then what you can say is, well, tell you what, let me put together some of my thoughts. I want to share some more things with you and have a discussion with you about that. Does that make sense to you? And book the next meeting. Okay, so that is my recommendation, unless, of course, they're ready to proceed. And they'll indicate to you if they want to get going. Okay? And on the first meeting, I wouldn't expect that they would. But occasionally, someone will be so impressed with you and they'll want to get going that they'll come right out and say it. And what you don't want to do at this stage is say, well, can I have the job? When can we start? Because it's just a little too early for that unless they're saying it. So what you want to do is get a commitment for the next meeting, and the most natural way to do it is, I really appreciated our conversation. I really have a good understanding now of what it is you're trying to accomplish. Let's go back to that web design example, can I do a mock-up of what I think your website would look like and the different pages and components that it would include? And I'd like to share that with you. Could we get together next week? Is Tuesday or Wednesday good? Something along those lines. So even try and book the meeting live while you've got them. Put it in the calendar. Okay? So that's, just like the proposal, the goal was to get the engagement going, get the conversation going. Now, after the first meeting, unless you've gotten the business, unless you won the business on the first meeting, which can happen, but most likely won't, after the first meeting, you say, book the next meeting. And the next meeting is going to be your full-on recommendations. And so that's the purpose of the first meeting. I hope that makes sense. All right, so when it comes to finding the work and having the conversations and beginning those conversations with prospects, with clients, potential clients, we've talked about going out and writing really good proposals and trying to engage that client that's looking to hire. Then having the first meeting and building some rapport and really getting them talking about their business and understanding, so you get a better understanding of what it is they do and what they want to do with this particular project. And now you're at a presentation stage where you can come back to them, assuming you didn't close it during the first meeting. You come back to them with a presentation. You say, I thought a lot about your project, and here's what I wanted to show you. Here's what I'm thinking. I know I don't know everything yet, but here's my initial thoughts. And this is what I call the presentation. And so what you want to do is prepare an agenda to follow. So just like I'm showing you up on the screen here, a very simple PowerPoint with a few bullet items, it can be as simple as that. I believe if you can, you want to do like a screen sharing, use a screen sharing software so you can really control the visuals of the presentation. If you're totally not comfortable with that, then you can send them an email with the documents before the meeting or share it through the freelance site like Upwork that you're working on. That's fine. I prefer a screen share because I can point to things and I can point out things and I can make sure that he's looking at what I want him, he or she, the client, prospective client is looking at what I want them to look at, and they don't get to see everything until I lay it out in front of them. But that's my preference. So if you're comfortable with that, if you do that, you can use GoToMeeting, has a free version of their screen sharing software. You can use Skype, actually has screen sharing capabilities if you're both doing Skype calls. I think it's join.me is another screen sharing software. So, and people are becoming very familiar with that. And you're dealing with business people, so a lot of them will be familiar with it too. Okay, so make sure you have that agenda to follow. And then what I recommend as part of your presentation is share a diagram, flowchart, some samples. So if it's kind of a graphical thing or a graphics, you can have some sample graphics to show. If it's programming, maybe some sort of schematic. Again, I'm not a programmer, but you can kind of have the logic that you want to show there. Maybe if it's some writing, you can say, here's the design. Here's what I'm thinking as far as the flow, and maybe you're sharing an outline of the article or articles that you're going to be writing. Just something up there. Again, it puts you in control, adds a visual component of it, gets him or her excited about their business, and they start visualizing it. So let me use an example, and this isn't beautiful, but this is one I use. And because I deal in sales and marketing, I'll put up a sales and marketing process flowchart. This is kind of big, but I'll use this and walk people through the sales and marketing process. I'll say, we'll use mass emails and we'll use pay-per-click advertising to drive people to all your online pages. And then from there, we're going to book them for free trials for your software or for your service. We're going to then take them, generate leads from it, and get your salespeople involved in this stage. I'm not going to explain all of it in this video, but the idea here is that I'm controlling it. And when you're really slick, you can add their names and maybe even their logo to this. You can certainly make this a lot more beautiful, but don't spend too much time on it. But just have something that clearly demonstrates that you know what you're talking about and that you've put some thought into their business. And again, no one else is going to do this for them. They're going to have a cut and paste resume in almost every case. They might be able to speak really intelligently about that other person's business, but are they going to have visuals to go with it? Unlikely. So this is kind of a chance for you to wow them. All right, let's go back to this and, walk your prospect through whatever it is you have. If it's a couple logos, talk through why you're designing the logo the way you are. They may not even like the logo, the quick little logo that you did up, but just walk them through the shading, walk them through the border colors, whatever it is. I don't obviously know much about logos, but you know what I mean? Talk it through so you're really demonstrating your expertise instead of telling them that you're good at something. You're showing them that you're good at it and proving it. Okay, and then the whole point of this, and the whole point of these meetings, in a perfect scenario, you want them to come out and ask when you can start. Because if they ask you, then you're in the power position. And it doesn't feel very salesy, does it, if they're asking you to start. Now, if they don't ask you to start, then what I would recommend is saying something like this. You need to ask them when we can get started. So I'll say something like this often. We've had a couple conversations. I feel like we're thinking along the same lines. I'd really love to have your business. Do you think we can get this started? What will it take for us to get this started? Something along those lines. and then you go for it. And then what it comes down to is negotiating some of the specifics, and we're going to talk about that in the next lesson. But really, in the presentation, these are the items you want to go through, and you don't want to try and jump and skip these steps unless they're just beating down your door to give you their money and to give them your business. You want to walk them through, and the more you can demonstrate that you're an expert, the better. Let's talk about winning the job. And up to this point, the last few lessons have been all about approaching prospects, starting your communication with them. So you've got the proposal stage where you're trying to engage them. They're responding to you, and you're having that first meeting. Then you're in a presentation mode where you're saying, this is what I recommend we do. And hopefully at that point, they're going to immediately say, let's get going, or you're able to close them and say, when do you want to start? And then you need to have that discussion about terms and settle in on a final payment. Sometimes you're obviously in your proposal, you have to put in what you're willing to work for, but don't be surprised if they ask you to lower it a little bit or change that a little bit. And if you do agree to lower it a little bit, try and get something back. So, I mean, this is not a negotiating course, but don't just roll over when clients are asking for something. So, because believe it or not, this might seem counterintuitive. If you give them everything they ask for without any pushback, it actually makes you look weak. It may make them lose some confidence in you. So, if they ask you to lower the price, you can say, I could probably lower it 5%, but that would mean I would need a down payment to start the work, something along those lines. So you need to go through, like I said, after they've told you that they want to work together, you need to just simply work through the terms and the pricing, and that's going to be different for different freelance sites. I believe on Upwork the way it works, and again, some of this can change over time, but on Upwork, they need to award you the job, and then they need to fund the work, and you have to agree to the terms. So there's a few emails that go back and forth, but Upwork will guide both of you, the client and you doing the work, will guide you both through that. Just the one thing I would encourage you to do is to really consider insisting on an upfront payment of like 25%. Or considering a milestone. So when I deliver the first part of the work, when I draft up the first article, or I do give you the schematics for the web page, or whatever it is that you say, you review it, and then you pay me the 25% or the 30% or whatever you come to. Milestones, again, are basically points in the job that can be identified and that you can both review and agree upon, and then they will release some of the payment. For some jobs it may not be necessary, but I encourage you to do it. I actually believe that even though they've said let's move ahead, until they've funded the job, until they've put the money aside in the Upwork or in the other freelance escrow account, which is just basically where that service will hold the money until they agree that you've done the job. You haven't completely locked it down. So I think it's important. Unfortunately, I had a situation where someone said, let's go ahead, and then they just delayed and delayed and delayed, and it kind of petered out. Now, thankfully, that was rare, but that can happen. So you're still, in a way, selling yourself at this point, and it's good to show some strength. Don't be a jerk about it. Don't say, you've got to give me 75% of the payment up front or I'm not going to do the job. But there's nothing wrong or unfair about expecting some of the money up front or be distributed in 2 or 3 payments across milestones. So hope that makes sense. And we're going to look next at actually getting into the work. Starting work. So we've gone through the process of finding the work we want, landing the work, getting their commitment, and now it's time to actually start executing on the work. Now, I realize most of you are probably more comfortable with this stage, and it makes more sense because you've done the type of work that you're bidding on. But I still want to share some tips with you about this, and one is to get the relationship off to a really strong start. So you want to hit any deliverables and deadlines. Remember those milestones we were talking about. You want to hit them and even get them done a little bit early. So here's an example, maybe of a programming and some design milestones from a freelancing job, and you want to make sure that you hit these milestones in the time frame that's associated with them. We don't see the date here, but these are milestones that you want to hit. So you want to make sure you hit those. That's going to incredibly boost it's going to boost the trust that your employer has in you, and get them excited about you. And don't be surprised if then that opens extra opportunities. Your best opportunities for more freelance work is with the people you're currently working with, or people that you've recently worked with and worked for. So nail the work. I mean, it's the right thing to do anyway, but some good things may follow from that for you. And another tip I have that will help with that as well is, insist on meetings and discussion. Be big on communication, especially at the very beginning while you're getting to know each other. You don't ever want to look like you're hiding from them, that you're falling behind in the work, you're not sharing them with them what you do. You just don't want, even if that's not what's happening, you want to make sure that it doesn't appear that way. Remember, these people are investing in you, and some of them may be investing significantly, and it might be hurting them a little bit financially. They're taking a risk, so make them feel really good about you. And they may or may not want to have face-to-face meetings, but you could send them an end-of-day email report just on the 2 or 3 or 4 items that you've worked on, the progress that you're making. Throw in a couple questions there. You got to think about the psychology of this relationship. And you're doing freelance work. In almost every case, you're not in the same location. There's not going to be an opportunity to physically meet. And so these things become even more important. And I want to share with you an example of my own work where I was brought in by a company initially for a 1-month period, and that was 6 months ago. And I would attribute some of these best practices that I worked with them on to them just keeping me on month after month after month, and always being able to depend on me. And so they had work for me to do. So you should always be looking for opportunities. You don't want to be too aggressive on that, but just sharing your recommendations and your input could very well lead to new opportunities. So so just some advice here on getting started and how to really make them feel good about hiring you, and even open additional doors for financial opportunity and work opportunity for you. Let's discuss success rates. So before we kind of go any further along in this course, I want you to start projecting your success, meaning let's do some math. Let's plan ahead for proposals, meetings that we're going to have, and what should all come out of that. And we're going to do some calculations and have a look at it, because I don't want you to submit a couple proposals and not get any meetings and think that you're doing anything wrong. On the other hand, if you submit 200 proposals and you never hear back from anybody, that's alarming too. So I want to show you what sort of successes you should have along the way. And so I did up a chart, and let me just give a disclaimer that I should give right now. Depending on your market, depending on your capabilities, your results may vary, I think is the term I'm supposed to use when it comes to talking about earnings potential. But I want to say that if you're not falling fairly closely in line with the table that I'm about to show, then I think you need to review what you're doing and have a look at it. Like I say, some markets there might be the competition might be more fierce, and so you're really going to have to buckle down even harder on getting your proposals in quicker, trying to stand out even more. Other markets may be more of niche markets, but there may not be as many opportunities and as many jobs being posted. So, but when they come out, you have a really good chance at getting conversations going. So keep all of that in mind. But with that said, I still want to give you an idea of how you can go ahead and project your success. And so here's a table as I reviewed my own history and doing things very much the right way in approaching freelancing, here's what I think is a reasonable proposal to response levels, to meetings, to close deals. I think this is a very reasonable number. So if you submit 40 proposals that you know you're eligible for, and you can get 12 responses back, and I might even be being a little conservative there, because if you follow all of the principles that I've shared, you might be able to get a higher number than that. But let's be safe and say you're getting 12 responses back. Basically, the client is saying, when can we meet? When can we connect? They might just ask you a follow-up question, like, what do you think about this? And then most of those, or over half of those, should result in at least having a meeting with them. So over the phone or Skype, webcam meeting. And then if you're getting to that stage, I do believe you should be closing a good number of them. So 3 closed deals. So to give you an idea on how much time should this all take me, well, it's going to take you longer when you first get started. But, even if you say it's going to take me 1 hour for every single proposal, and again, you get faster and faster at that. But as I told you, this course is not about quickly posting proposals. I want you to submit good proposals. So let's say an hour for each. Some might take you 2, some might take you 30 minutes. But let's say an hour. So there's 40 hours. That's a full week's worth of work. And then you get 12 responses. Well, those don't take too long. Those are probably only going to take you 10 minutes because they're just emails going back and forth. So let's say let's call that another 2 hours. So now we're up to 42 hours worth of work. And then you have 7 meetings. Let's say that's going to take you 7 hours. It probably won't. But and let's round it up and say now you've got 50 hours worth of work. Because you may, like I said, you're going to have a couple meetings in some case. But so in my experience, those last like 30 minutes. And then, so we're around 50 hours, and then you end up with 3 closed deals out of that. So you want to think about that. Okay, if I'm going to put 50 hours plus into getting 3 deals, maybe I shouldn't be bidding for $50 jobs. So that's one thing to think about. But what if you land 2 long-term jobs where they're 20 hours a week? Then all of a sudden, you've got full-time work, and you put in about 50 hours to get it. That is well worth it. Or it could be somewhere in the middle. And then, the following week you're going to do 10 proposals and because you're working some. And so you eventually do enough work, which it will trickle down to full-time freelancing if that's what you're looking for. It may not be, maybe you just want part-time freelancing. So you can see, though, that these numbers are not crazy, but it also kind of drives home the point, don't be careful about spending too much of your time on tiny, tiny jobs. I do caution against that. Now, some markets may lend themselves more towards transactional work, where it's a project and you're not going to get any ongoing work with it. Well, then maybe you want to look at $500 to $1,000 projects. Maybe you get so good at writing these proposals that $200 or $300 projects, like writing articles or things like that, or simple web design or some programming editing, you'll find your niche and the types of jobs you like to put proposals on, the ones you like to talk about the most, and the ones that you're best at closing. But always keep this in mind in projecting your success, projecting the amount of time investment it's going to take you to get the work, and then, of course, be thinking about how much of your time you want to spend working. But to me, looking at this table, it should be very exciting to you that, with 50 hours of work, I could have a thriving freelancing business. So basically, you put one good week in, and the following week you could be closing business. It's not unreasonable at all. Sometimes some of the bigger opportunities, you'll start having meetings, and it may take a few weeks for it to finally pan out, because sometimes these guys are a little bit procrastinators, some clients. But you'll know when good things are happening. So I'm excited for you, knowing that if you follow this process, you're going to have success. I absolutely believe that. And full-time freelancing could be much, much closer than you think. It doesn't have to be something that's way off 2 years down the road. It doesn't have to be. You dive into this, you get really good at it really fast. There's so much so many clients looking to fill so much opportunity. I hear people complain about the economy and people not having jobs. And for some reason, most people don't even give this approach a thought. So I'll go off on a little soliloquy here. There's traditional jobs, which people go out and they look in their community and they look on the classifieds online or even in newspapers, and they'll go look for work and they'll put their resume in, and once in a while they'll get an interview and they'll go into the interview and they might get the job. And that, I do expect that's a very long process, which can take months. At the same time, there's people, and often there's not even one job in your particular market for the work you do in your city or in your town. But there's almost always somebody hiring in these freelancing opportunities for the type of work that you're looking to do. And yeah, it's a bit different, but it's not like opening a restaurant. It doesn't have that risk at all. All you're risking is a little bit of your time, which you're going to do anyway if you're looking for work. So I really believe it's almost a great unknown secret, and it's not like starting an online business or an internet business at all. It's people looking to find other people that can do work for them and pay them real money. At this point, I will caution you. I'm starting to go off the rails here. I will caution you on these freelance websites that there will occasionally be these kind of make money online. We pay commission only. Just avoid those people. Don't waste your time with that. Those opportunities are a dime a dozen. They're everywhere. So if you're looking for that kind of opportunity, no need to go on freelance websites to find it. Like home-based businesses and things. Just look for real work, people that have real money that are willing to pay you. I always think if someone's not willing to pay me for my time, what value is that? I don't need them in that case. Okay, so there you go. Success rates, projecting success, and I'm really excited. I think if you look at this, you should be excited too, and use it as you get started to gauge if things are going correctly or not. So like I said, if you submit 100 proposals and you haven't heard back from anybody, that's a problem. In fact, I would say if you submit 10 proposals and you haven't gotten one reply, then you're probably doing something that's not correct. Certainly if you've got up to 10 proposals and you're not even hearing a response from anyone, there's probably an issue there. And you need to go back and review the looking for jobs, jobs to avoid, and how to write your proposals. So all of those things. All right. So here's to your success, and we'll do the next lesson in the next video. So achieving next level success in your freelancing work, in your freelancing business, I think is something you really want to strive for. So now you know how to find work, go after it, and win those jobs. You're working on a regular basis. Now you really want to maximize your income. You want to maximize the relationships that you have with clients. And, if you're doing it, you may only be working with one or two clients that things have gone so well. Regardless, you really want to build your business relationships. And again, it really does come down to trust. And it's going to take some time, and you need to deliver on what you say you're going to deliver. So if it's accounting work, you go through audits and you do the books for them, or maybe you're delivering payroll for them, or whatever it is you're doing for them, and you're executing it really well. That's going to obviously build a relationship and establish the trust. And I believe a natural next step, once that trust is solid and strong, is for you to move your financial arrangement off of the freelancing websites. Now, the freelancing websites are not going to agree with that because they want to continue to take a percentage of the revenue that your client pays you and that you receive. So your client has to pay more and you get less. It's not a good long-term solution, in my opinion. Now, some people on both the client side and on the freelancer side may want to do that forever. And that's totally up to you. And it may even be in their terms and conditions on your particular freelancing site that says you have to do that, which can't imagine how they can actually force that in any way. But I wouldn't, in any of my communications on the freelancing communication channels, talk about, hey, let's move off of this site and let's work just together. That would obviously be a very unintelligent thing to do. And I actually assume that my freelance site is going to read all of my messages or look for keywords, and they could go back and review it. They may or may not, but I suspect that they have the right to do that. So I would, though, you're going to be talking to these people on the phone via regular email. I would recommend moving off the freelance site and having a one-on-one relationship where you can invoice them through email or PayPal or whatever you choose, or direct bank deposits, because once you've established the trust and once you've established the relationship, the value for you to remain on a freelance website sort of disappears. The only value, there is one value, I should say, that is very relevant, though, and that's that when you go to look for more clients, it's good to show that you have existing and active clients on the freelance site. So that is one potential benefit. One thing I recommend as you move your client off of the freelancing site, I would ask them directly if they'll give you a perfect rating, a ranking, and give you a great testimonial. Doesn't mean you're done working with them. It's just that you're moving it off the freelance site. So there you go. And then what you do is they save money. So let's say they were paying you $20 an hour. Let's say they were paying you $25 an hour. And depending on the fee that the freelance site might take, that might mean you only get $20 of it. So you could, if it's something you think you need to negotiate, I mean, I would say go to them and say, look, would you be willing to move off the freelance site and you just pay me via PayPal? If they continue to pay $25 or direct deposit into your bank account, then now you just get a huge raise. I think that's 20% raise, right? They may say, well, yeah, but now there's no fees, so I don't really want to pay you quite that much. And you say, well, why don't we split the difference? And they pay you $22.50 per hour. So you actually get a raise by moving off of it. Try and make something in that transaction. And so, they're getting more, you're getting more. Here's a picture of a graph with money going up. I guess I thought I should add that to the presentation just to give you a visual. So really, you've established the trust. You both trust each other. Why not give yourself a raise as the freelancer? And they may want a little bit of a discount in your pay, and everybody is winning in that situation. So, if you look at my freelance work on Upwork, for example, that's certainly how I have worked it, and I have no ethical problem with that at all. Of course, let your own conscience be your guide on that, but I don't really see why any freelance site, they're going to get a percentage of the initial money, but I'm not going to stay on with them for years and years and years. So I believe that's a natural progression towards next level success.